Good morning, our cherished viewers. My name is Sweetie Abochi. Welcome to the AM show. I'm doing this with
Benjamin Akako, yours truly, always getting us to hit that right spot when it comes to current affairs and politics. Lovely outfit, by the way.
Yeah, today is not Valentine's Day yet. It's tomorrow, but I decided that today, tomorrow, and the rest of the week, if I can, I'll wear it.
You'll rock red.
Yeah.
Are you big on Valentine's Day?
I like that we're celebrating love. I love love. So perhaps that's why, I'm a Christmas lady.
So you're a romantic.
I'm a helpless romantic.
You heard it here for the first time on the AM show. She's a helpless romantic.
Yes,
I hope you will not backtrack on that in the
I
future.
won't. So send me flowers, send us chocolates, send us whatever. Tomorrow, we'll be expecting it. But today is the 13th of February 2024, and it's a Tuesday edition of the show. In a bit, I'll be serving you the news, and then right after...
Well, the news review with finance analyst Dr. Wisdom Kofi Dogbe. He will be our guest, followed by sports with Muftau Nabila Abdullahi. And then, Sweetie, for the big stories, where are we headed?
Well, President Akufo-Addo has spent 3 years of his last term. He's appointed ministers to help steer the affairs of the country. Have they performed? We know that we're sensing a reshuffling happening. Does any of them need to be replaced? That's what we're getting into today in the big story. So join us as we explore this and other pertinent issues later on in the show.
Well, later as well, we're going to be contemplating what you will do to survive the current economic hardship, especially if you're a degree holder and you're thinking, wait, I have a degree in X. Why should I be doing Y? Well, a young man has found a way around this. He's checking people's medical statistics, blood pressure, among others, sugar levels, to fend for himself and his family rather than sit idle. Well, Sweetie Abochi has been interacting with him. We'll bring you the details of that later on the show.
Also, Teachers and Educational Workers Union strike is still on. We'll get you updates later on the show and how that's faring, whether the government has, alleviated the grievances of the people. So stay with us from now till 10 a.m. We'll also open the phone lines for you to have your say, and you can join us also on social media on all our platforms and have your say.
All right. So that's what the show looks like. But before we go, I'm very excited about tomorrow. You know why?
Tell me why.
Not necessarily because it's Valentine's Day. I've not been so fussy about Valentine's Day. Yes, you share love, your mother, your girlfriend, your wife, your brother, your husband, but because it's Ash Wednesday.
Yes, and you're Catholic. What happens on Ash Wednesday?
Well, you go for Mass, it begins the Lenten season, and most importantly, you get signed with ashes. If you miss it,
I want to experience.
You're invited.
I was actually born Catholic. Benjamin,
you're invited.
Should we start the show? Thank you.
Yeah, let's do this. So,
all right.
That's the note on which we are segueing into the news with Sweetie Abochi. We'll be right back.
This is the AM News on the AM Show with me, Sweetie Abochi. Let's get into the details. Let's begin with flag bearer of the National Democratic Congress, John Dramani Mahama, who said he cannot promise salary increments for pre-tertiary teachers and other labor unions if given the nod. His comment was in response to a series of calls by some teacher groups for the former president to revise their conditions of service if the NDC wins power. Addressing the calls on his Building Ghana tour in Tamale, John Mahama said it will be dishonest on his part to make promises that he cannot redeem, considering the current economic situation.
Pre-tertiary teachers, she talked about conditions of service. I've said it, that the economy is in a big mess, and so I cannot promise everybody that we're going to increase your salaries and all that. I don't want to be like those dishonest people who came and promised you heaven and said they will build factories in every district, they will build dams in every village, they will give every constituency $1 million a year. I'm not that kind of person. And so I cannot promise you that I'm coming to increase your salaries, but we've taken note of the difficulties that pre-tertiary teachers are going through. And I've suggested some of the solutions. And one is that we will help you with accommodation in the schools so that more teachers can stay in school. One of the reasons a lot of teachers do not want to go on posting to certain areas is because they cannot find accommodation. There are even some rural areas where nobody rents a house or a room, and so you have to stay in town and commute to school every day. And the cost of transport will eat up all your salary.
The Teachers and Educational Workers Union of Ghana has refused to call off its industrial action, despite government meeting some of their demands. Members of TEU Ghana laid down their tools a week ago over the failure of government to pay their Tier 2 pension funds to managers, as well as demands for extra duty and vehicle maintenance allowances. Negotiations between some labor unions and government led to the resolution of some of the grievances, which included the payment of Tier 2 pension funds and extra duty allowance. This, however, compelled sister striking unions, including the Senior Staff Association of Universities of Ghana, to call off their industrial action. But the leadership of TEU Ghana insists the strike will be called off only when government fully meets its demands. Charles Arthur is KNUST chairman of TEU Ghana.
TEU Ghana, per the directive from our National Executive NEC, we are still on strike, being that our demands have not all been met, and we think that it has been met before. We have also not had engagement with the Labour Commission, the Labour Court in this country. As a result of that, the NEC find it difficult to suspend the strike. So as we speak, we are still on strike. And TEU Ghana, to our demands go beyond other unions' demands. For example, we are talking of condition of service provision relating to payment of vehicle maintenance allowance to some staff who are TEU Ghana members, which, as we speak, some universities pay, others does not pay. They said the reason being that GTech is behind telling them that don't pay. So it has created a lot of inconveniences in some campuses. And the National Executive felt that this is the opportunity to bring it to the attention of the National Labour Commission, so that the Commission will deal with it once and for all. Hence, our strikes are ongoing. It's unfortunate that students, at the end of the day, they will be affected by the negativity of our actions. But what can one do? Because if at the end of the day, we're in a country that is the only thing that the employer will understand, you understand, then of course, and we also have to note that there's nowhere in this world that you disobey the law and purport to obey the law. It's not done in any way. Once the law is law, you obey it. You understand? There's a provision in the condition of service. You said you will not obey it. However, you are going behind to say that I will do this. You cannot disobey the law and purport to obey the law. So we want the Labour Commission to tell the university management, the GTech, that look, the law is the law. It's in the conditions of service. It is a law passed by the Parliament of Ghana. Obey it, please. We actually render service and you pay me. So if you are not going to pay me, you understand, it will amount to breach of contract, you understand, between me and my employer. And it's the employer whom I'm rendering service to should be dealt with, or the complaint will have to be made against the employer and not me, the employee who is rendering a service. This is very straightforward.
Kindergarten pupils at Onwe Basic School in Ejiso municipality of the Ashanti region have been studying under a tree for the past 4 years due to limited classrooms. Concerned residents say the open learning space for kindergarten 1 and 2 pupils negatively impacts their education, as the children are distracted by moving vehicles and reptiles. Here's a report.
Speaking to Joy News, the residents of Onye said the pupils are mostly challenged during the rainy season. The pupils move to the veranda of the basic school or are sent home when the clouds gather. The local authorities have been made aware of the situation, but there is no intervention yet.
It's been long. I can count almost 4 years. They have sat under the tree for long. The old and new students have all been under the tree.
Aside from the kindergarten learning on the tree, the lack of electricity in the school has hindered the learning of ICT. Teachers at the Onye MA Junior High School, too, also have their staff common room under a tree. According to some of the tutors, they have had to take shelter under the trees for over a decade.
School free. Classroom
Our classrooms have gullies, and it gets worse when it rains. We don't even have computers.
Construction of a building intended to accommodate the people are stalled. The recently elected assemblyman of Abuenim, Odaho, and Onyu electoral area, Hakim Mohammed, says he has started engagements to improve the situation. What worries me the most are the kids under the tree. I have engaged the Onyu chief. We need funds. Reporting for J News, Clinton Yabwa.
Now, Municipal Chief Executive for Sagmeregu, Ahmed Yakubu Mohammed, is asking newly elected members of the Assembly to work towards developing the municipality. He says his municipality is a fairly young one, which needs all hands on deck to bring development to the area. The Municipal Chief Executive said this at the inauguration of the Assembly.
The Sagmeregu Municipal Assembly has a total of 34 Assembly members, made up of 10 government appointees and 24 elected members. These members are to help spearhead development in the area. The mayor said the people would look up to the Assembly members to formulate policies that will help bring the needed development.
As you may be well aware, Sagmeregu municipality is relatively a young municipality. Therefore, there is so much to be done in terms of development. You, as the representatives of the people, have a lot to do.
The Assembly members re-elected Salim Abubakar as the presiding member of the House. He secured 100% votes. Addressing the Assembly, Mr. Salim said the Assembly members having voted 100% shows their readiness to help work and bring the needed development.
Honourable members, you have done it again by telling our chiefs, opinion leaders, and the people in the assembled government areas that when it comes to assembled businesses, the people and the development are considered first before any other thing. Honourable members, it is therefore appreciated to thank you once again for giving me yet another opportunity to serve you and the Assembly.
The Chief Director at the Northern Regional Coordinating Council, Alhaji Alhassan Isahaku, who represented the President, said governance is closer to the people than before since the inception of the local government system.
We can all agree that government is closer to the people than it had ever been in the history of this country. As we constitute the membership of the District Assembly, it is emphasized that new ideas and opportunities would emerge to deepen the deliberative, legislative, and executive functions of the District Assembly.
Meanwhile, WAM Municipal Chief Executive Ishaku Tahiru Mumin wants newly sworn-in members of the Assembly to put the past behind them, bury their differences, and unite with all opponents who contest against them for the speedy development of the municipality. Rafiq Salam reports from WA.
Right to all Supervising High Court Judge Justice Alhaji Yusuf Asibi swore the 47-member WAM Municipal Assembly into office. They were made to swear 3 oaths: oath of office, oath of secrecy, and oath of allegiance. President Akufo-Addo, in a speech read on his behalf by Upper Wasunya Minister Dr. Hafiz bin Sali, called on the newly sworn-in members of the Assembly to work to change the status quo, to bring services to the doorstep of the people in order for them to get the full benefit of decentralization.
The instincts of the average citizen is still to look towards Accra or their member of parliament for things that fall within the remit of the district assembly. I am expecting that you would be part of the team that will finally change the status quo and deepen local governance and decentralization to enable citizenry have access to public and basic service in their districts rather than commuting to Accra for such services.
One municipal chief executive is Secretary Movement on his part urged them to put the past behind them as the elections are over and bury their differences with the vanquished for the development of the municipality.
Permit me to remind you that the electoral contest is over and we are here to be sworn in as assembly members. It is therefore incumbent on you to extend the olive branch to your unsuccessful contenders as you need the support of all of these people to help you develop your respective electoral areas faster. I must state that the common enemy is poverty, illiteracy, and underdevelopment. And thus, I would like to use this medium to appeal to all of you to put behind the fallouts of the district level elections. We have a municipality to develop, and this should be our preoccupation and our prime focus.
A similar event also took place at Jiriba, where 55 members of the newly elected members of the assembly were sworn into office. Here, the president's speech, which was read on his behalf, centered on unplanned and faster development in most district assemblies. This challenge mentioned by the president well fitted into one of two priorities of the Jiriba Municipal Chief Executive, lawyer Nicolas Soiri, which he will want the newly inaugurated assembly to have a serious look at.
The rate at which buildings are coming up in Jiriba is alarming, and that's my first priority would be to look at how we can plan the town with the planning authorities so that we are not overcome by development to the extent that it becomes difficult to construct roads, for example, or even lay water pipelines in the future. So that's my most important priority. My second priority would be to look at improving property rate collection as well as other revenue items. We have been struggling to raise revenues, even though we exceeded our target last year, but we hope to do better this year.
Reporting for the news, Rafiq Salam. Wow.
Now, residents of Jiriba are still in grief over the murder of the owner of the Royal Cozy Hills and Hotel and Safari Resorts by unknown assailants. Beg your pardon. They describe late Eric Johnson as a selfless man whose death is not only a big blow to Jiriba, but the entire Upper West region. Whilst the youth in the area have declared a week of mourning as a mark of respect for him, they're calling on the police to work assiduously to ensuring that the perpetrators face justice. Another report by Rafiq Salam.
The unknown assailant is alleged to have entered the private residence of owner of the Royal Cozy Hills Hotel, Eric Johnson, aided by a ladder through this fortified fence wall. The executive mansion, as he called it, overlooked the Royal Cozy Hills Hotel, where he lived and met his personal guests. Eric Johnson is security conscious and has never toyed with his personal security. One cannot have access to this edifice without his personal knowledge. He's always the one to conduct you around the magnificent edifice. The executive mansion now has all four gates closed and under lock and key as a result of his gruesome murder last Sunday. I am in front of one of the gates of the private residence of the Chief Executive Officer of Royal Cozy Hills Hotel, Eric Johnson. We are told that he came from this route after allegedly committing the act, came through this gate, went out with his car, and then dumped the car in the heart of town. Inside the Royal Cozy Hills Hotel, which shares a wall with the executive mansion, it appears deserted and looks like a ghost town. Less than a dozen of workers were seen at work with no regular to take care of. The Jiriba town is enveloped with sadness, grief, and anger over the loss of a man who is a Goliath in achievement and development of the area and the region at large. Both the young and old, the business community, are yet to come to terms with what happened.
This man is a joy to us all. This man is somebody who is down to earth. He doesn't see himself worldly. Because of that, doesn't respect people. He respects every Tom, Dick, and Harry. My daughter, he has always passionately called her wife. This man has always been there for me and my daughter and for my little business. He's the reason why my business is like this. He's the reason why I'm even living here in Drapa and comfortably in the lead among others. I've lost a great man. Drapa has lost, Upper West has lost.
That man is actually very, very charitable. That one there. If you ask anybody that actually knows the man, he has the heart of giving. He really gives out unconditionally. Irrespective of whom you are, then you've not met him. If you haven't met him, fine. But if you are able to pass through the right procedure, the right processes and meet the man, you realize that whatever your needs are, especially financially, that man will be able to help you.
A week of mourning has been declared by the youth as a mark of respect for him.
Concern for our fallen hero. So we ensure that all our teaming youth from today, all of us put on red, put on black, whatever your workplace, we are calling on the municipal chief executive, the police. That's what we want to do in solidarity of what? Fallen hero. So that from henceforth, this is why
pupils at basic schools are also not left out in directing their anger on the unknown assailant who callously took away their most cherished treasure from them.
All of the small kids, but they talk, they are crying. That man is our uncle. He used to small boy and go and leave him. We went and killed him.
They want a thorough investigation to unravel the mystery surrounding the brutal murder of Eric Johnson.
We want to see the police have so far indicated to pick up 5 suspects to assist 7 now to insist investigation. We want to plea on the Ghana Police Service that they should continue to do diligence. We the youth are opening up to assist volunteer information to make sure that we bring the culprits to book.
Jiruba Municipal Chief Executive Nicolas Soyuri met with the Rockos Hills Hotel CEO last Friday. He shocked the marrow about his murder, taxing the police CID to ensure that the perpetrators are brought to book.
Some people have been arrested to assist the police with investigation. Still early days yet, but I am sure that the culprits will be brought to book. It's something that it beats my imagination, and it's a really sad event for Jirapa.
62 kilometers away from Jiruba and in the Upper Sudan capital, Upper Sudan Minister Dr. Hafiz bin Sali led a team of newly sworn-in assembly members to observe a minute of silence for the business mogul cum entrepreneur. For many years in Jiruba, Eric Johnson was seen as an electric generator that feeds several thousands of bulbs. It is hope that the security agencies, especially the police, will do everything possible to unravel the mystery surrounding his death. Reporting for Joy News, Rafik Salam, Jiruba.
And that will be all for the AM News on the AM Show. But stay with us. Up next, we begin a series of conversations for today, beginning with the news review. Dr. Dogbe, who is a financial analyst, will be our guest. Keep watching.
Welcome back on the AM Show. Time now for us to usher you in to the news review. We'll get into the papers and also get the thoughts of our guests. But before I announce my guest for this Tuesday morning, let me just let you know that Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, as always, is helping us to bring you this segment. And guess what? They're offering you, if you're a man, prostate screening for free. If you're a woman, fertility screening for free. You don't want to be caught pants down, literally. So check out your prostate if you're a man. Check out your fertility status if you're a woman, just to be sure. Yeah? It's like a car. You want to give it maintenance, not because there may necessarily be a fault, but if there is, then you want to get ahead of the game, be one step ahead. And that's why you ought to reach out to Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic at any of their branches. Where are they in Accra? You can locate them at Spintex opposite the Shell signboard, in Kumasi, Kronum Abwehia behind the Angel Educational Complex, in Takrade at Anaji Estates, then there's Tema, Community 22, Techiman Hanswa, and Isiama in Zima. Their call lines remain 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. We're just the start of the news review, and we're joined by finance analyst Dr. Wisdom Kofi Dogbe. He joins us this morning. Good morning, Doc.
Good morning, Ben. Thank you for having me again.
Good to have you. You've been joining us from far away for a few weeks now, and we're grateful to have you join us for another Tuesday morning. As always, I'm going to give you some 2 minutes, thereabouts, 2 minutes. Let's try and stick to it, for you to reflect on anything that has caught your attention, that has got you maybe thinking or scratching your head over the last week, before we get into the papers.
Thank you, Ben. I want to chime in on this whole thing about Dr. Bawumia's recent address to the nation. I have a lot of respect for Dr. Bawumia as a person, though I disagree with him on a few policy items. You know, when Dr. Bawumia and His Excellency President Akufo-Addo, when they first won the elections, some Ghanaians had high hopes for them, and they hoped that it would indeed bring transformation, economic growth, and shared prosperity to the nation. If you look at their profiles and what they said on the campaign trail before they assumed office, when they came, the cedi dollar exchange rate, I believe, was 2 cedis to $1. And I recall the president that even campaigned on that.
Just a sec. So when in 2016, Akufo-Addo took over, it was not 2 cedis to the dollar. It was around 4 cedis to the dollar, if I recall correctly. Just on that, we can cross-check.
Right. I stand to be corrected, but I listened to a message from him. When he mentioned that it was a 2 cedi to $1, he promised that when he comes to the office, it will be $1 to 1 cedi. And we all know the story of how the cedi compares to the dollar today. You know, Dr. Bawumia had also talked about moving away from taxation to production, which I suspect that many economists will agree that that is a better way to grow the economy. And that promise, we all know that it also did bite the dust. There were a handful of other promises made to Ghanaians, which unfortunately did not materialize. However, I do appreciate the effort that the vice president had put into, trying to digitize the economy, right? He spoke more of digitization in his address, but I don't know if that really resonated with the citizens, because it doesn't seem as, that is the pressing need of the average Ghanaian household. We have to take care of more pressing issues first, such as unemployment, education, healthcare, and the national debt.
But he explains, Dr. Dogbe, and my apologies, but he explains that digitization feeds into the economy. You talk about job creation and everything in between, but if you are digitizing and digitalizing, which is monetizing digitization, then there would be, over time, the trickle-down effect. When you digitize the DVLA, when you digitize the passport office and all of that, you are taking away money that would have ended up with Guru boys and other, unscrupulous characters, and feeding it back into the system. So eventually, that would create some jobs, among others. Don't you see it that way?
Ben, you have a point. But the problem now is that Ghanaians are not feeling that in their pocketbooks today. That is why it doesn't resonate with them. I really support it, right? We need to catch up with developed nations, but it doesn't resonate with the Ghanaian population at this time. Now, coming back to Dr. Bawumia's speech itself, I tend to agree that it is quite an indictment on the current administration, which is part of. And I also think it was such a missed opportunity for him. He has such a huge platform, Ben, an opportunity to connect to the average Ghanaian and genuinely sell his vision. And it is my opinion that he did not leverage that platform to convince many Ghanaians that he's the man for the moment. Now, here's why I think that was a missed opportunity. From what I read, he failed to take responsibility or accountability for the current poor state of the economy, a situation that was caused by some of the failed policies that this administration implemented.
But he says he's the mate. He's the driver's mate. He's not the driver. He's the mate, the conductor. He's not the driver.
I'll get to that in a second. I learned that he was the chairman of the economic management team. And arguably, Ben, he had a prominent seat at the table when some of these policy decisions were being crafted and adopted. To me, his attempt to separate himself from the current administration, it can be likened to a divorce proceeding where the parties have too many entanglements, that the courts will need ample time to unwind each entanglement and grant that divorce. You know, it will be a divorce that will take far more than 1 year to dissolve, and he doesn't necessarily have that much time before the elections in December. Look, the little I know about leadership is this. When things go south, you don't blame others. You man up and own up and go to those who hired you into that position. Transparently admit that mistakes were made. Explain the impact to your employers and give them some comfort, you know, by presenting a solid plan on what you have learned in the failure and how you intend to remediate the situation. In some corporate settings, man, I believe you may be fired on the spot if you as a leader, you go before your employers and tell them I am aware that this humongous issue has happened under my watch, but it was not my fault. Please promote me from a driver's mate to the main driver, and I'll fix the problem. You know, Dr. Bawumia is in a poor position today to implement right now some of his vision items that he's selling to Ghanaians without having to wait to be president first. In advanced democracies, Ben, if you have fundamental differences in ideologies, as Dr. Bawumia wants Ghanaians to believe that he has with his boss, such as in the areas of taxation, the right thing to do is to resign. I'll give you a typical example. United States Vice President John C. Calhoun, he was a vice president under Presidents John Quincy Adams and Andrew Jackson. He resigned from the presidency under Adams also because of Adams' high taxes and tariffs. That was an ideological difference. You know, so he did the noble thing, resigned, and pitched camp with another politician. If Dr. Bawumia had resigned as a result of this supposed disagreement with His Excellency President Akufo-Addo and his government on taxes, for example, his current comments, I believe, would have resonated better with the citizens of Ghana. Look,
right.
Dr. Bawumia is a fine statesman, right? And I'm sure that his advisors are doing a great job advising, but this is one strategy that I think they will need to recalibrate if they want to make breaking the eight a reality. Dr. Kwame Nkrumah once said, those who judge us merely by the heights that we've achieved, they will do well to remember the deep places from which we started.
Right.
It will be a better, I think it will be a better success story, in my opinion, if Dr. Bawumia takes responsibility and accountability of the failures of this current administration, which I like to liken to the deep places that Dr. Kwame Nkrumah was talking about.
Okay. Interesting thoughts, interesting reflections. Of course, just to point out that, as we know, while the 1992 Constitution has its own specifications in terms of the president or the executive and what a vice president would be expected to do, this convention of having a vice president serve as head of the economic management team or member of the economic management team. We've cited documents to the effect that when John Dramani Mahama was, made vice president, some documentation pointing to the fact that he was encouraged. In fact, he was given the position of a member of the economic management team, not necessarily the head. And if you look at the constitution of the economic management team, under any regime, you would have crucial players like a finance minister, like, depending on who's on cabinet and what the framing would be at the time, but likely a trade minister, energy minister, among others. So membership, what does it mean? Heading, what does it mean by convention? And how much can we pin him down to on that? I have said that I've been personally disappointed about some of the parrying, not just by Dr. Bawumia, but by other candidates as well. Oh, when I was there, this and that. Owning up to responsibility, like you said, is a mark of leadership. If you can't own up and say, yes, this happened under my watch, I was a part of it, then it's problematic. And Alan Tremantin, I think on the very day that Dr. Bawumia spoke, made mention of that. And he said for him, he takes responsibility for staying with this administration and everything that happened in between, and that the vice president should do same. But I guess these are our opinions, and the verdict is out there for all of us to make. But let's quickly get into the papers and then take some quick reflections. The Daily Graphic says FDA to shut down unlicensed canteens. There's also many of our country's laws outmoded. Professor Tuguba, Dean of the University of Ghana Law School, says so. Tackling climate change, Ghana to receive $850 million in support from Switzerland. GCB Bank appoints Daniel Asirifi as board chairman. On the back page, 259 MMDCEs inaugurated. So let's get into the details. Now, the Food and Drugs Authority has warned that it may close canteens and food service units of public institutions if they operate without a valid food hygiene permit from the authority. It has therefore cautioned all unlicensed food service establishments that failure to acquire the food hygiene permit by February 29, 2024 would, quote, attract the requisite regulatory sanctions, which may include the closure of facilities, fines, and/or criminal prosecutions. Now, it has consequently advised canteens of schools, hospitals, and all corporate institutions to ensure that their food service facilities are, quote, inspected and licensed by the FDA. It also advised them to only contract the services of licensed caterers for the catering of corporate meetings, lunches, and daily meals for students and patients. This is something to be taken seriously because guess what? I mean, a friend was recently sharing with me how in her outfit, of course, I can't mention the name, but you have people not exactly observing hygienic processes when dealing with food. For example, you can tell some of them have gone down with colds. It could be COVID, it could be anything, and they are coughing and they are serving meals and everything in between, and they are not wearing masks. So you ask yourself, I mean, what kind of systems we have. And it's good that the FDA is moving out on that. Better late than never, I say. Let me quickly go to page 13 and do those two stories there, and then you can come in, Doc. After that, we'll go on the international front. So Ghana is expecting to receive up to $850 million from Switzerland in direct investment, carbon revenues, and fees by 2030 as part of the country's efforts to fight climate change. Now, the amount is due from 8 out of 12 projects being developed under an agreement with Switzerland, which have reached investment decision points. The Minister of Environment, Science, Technology and Innovation, Dr. Kpebu, who disclosed this at the launch of the 2023 annual report on the implementation of Article 6.2 of the Paris Agreement in Accra last Friday, stressed that Ghana was currently at the forefront of the fight against the impact of global warming and its attendant climate change issues. I know you're also passionate about climate change, and especially as it affects Africa, probably more than any other continent. And finally, I'm just putting all of these together. So there's the shutting down of unlicensed canteens, the FDA's move. There is the planned receipt of $850 million in support from Switzerland by 2030 to fight climate change. And finally, many of our country's laws outmoded. That's according to Professor Tuguba. Now, the Dean of the University of Ghana School of Law, Professor Raymond Akongburo Atuguba, has said many of the country's laws are outmoded, making it difficult for people to adhere to ethical principles in the corporate world, particularly the banking sector. Quoting him, he says, Our laws are not in tune with the times. How do you determine ethics with such a legal framework? He questioned. And I found it interesting because recently the Chief Justice was talking about adding a dress code to the legal ethics system or its teaching. Now, speaking at the GCV Platinum Thought Leadership Conference in Accra last Friday, Professor Kpebu said the country still had about 10 English laws in its statutes passed between 1539 and 1863. Imagine that. He said since the laws, including the Bills of Exchange Act 1961, that is Act 55, were passed years ago, there had been significant developments which required that new laws were passed to align with the current trends, but that had not been done. And that is what he's talking about, which also reminds me of our driving code. I think it goes back to the 1970s, I think. And since that time, we've not had any amendments to them. I stand corrected if anyone has contradictory information. But over to you, Doc. 3 issues for your dissection. What do you make of them?
No, I think Professor Tuguba is spot on this one. Professor Tuguba is one of the smart brains in the country, and I was fortunate to have been taught by him at some point during my studies. Yeah, at the University of Ghana, Legon.
I see.
You know, a handful of our laws were enacted many years ago, and with a lot of things changing in our world today, I think it is time to review and amend some of these laws that are outdated, just like the professor was talking about. It is a critical initiative that we must undertake to ensure that the legal framework of our nation remains effective and relevant, and also aligns with the changing or evolving needs and principles of society. If you think about it, people and businesses and society as a whole, and also technology, all of these are ever evolving. And if we still continue to apply laws that have long passed their times of relevance, we may not effectively be able to solve new challenges in the society, which can lead to miscarriage of justice. For example, if we're serious about continuing to digitize the economy, we have to move away from our outdated laws, right? Or amend these laws to properly address emerging challenges such as cyber fraud and data privacy. We have to review and amend some of these laws that were enacted decades ago to ensure that their legal framework is at pace, with societal and also technological changes, providing that transparency and some guidance in new and also complex circumstances. Then also, if you think about it, then the issue of backlog of cases in the judicial system, it could be that, or let me even just ask it, could it be that some of our laws are so opaque or addicted, leading to longer times to decipher the issues and provide a ruling? We have seen cases such as the one involving the late Major Mahama, ACP Agojo, and many other cases, they're taking so long to resolve, right? Some of these outdated laws might create what I call significant inefficiencies in the legal system, causing delays, misunderstandings, and unnecessary burdens on citizens and other participants in the legal proceedings. Our society is evolving in many ways, and so we need to review and amend some of these laws, streamline legal requirements, and remove obsolete processes. That, in my opinion, is how we can better improve as a nation from a legal point of view, make the processes effective and efficient so that all citizens can have access, right, and use the laws on our books fairly. And then, as I mentioned earlier, there's been significant generational shift, right, since some of these laws were enacted. Then, since then, societal principles and values, like I said earlier, have been evolving. And so these outdated laws may not necessarily be in sync with human rights standards and social justice. So I believe that Parliament may want to review and amend these outdated laws to enable the nation to properly address inequalities, provide inclusivity for all, regardless of social class or any other consideration, and basically ensure uniform protection without bias. Now, one of the key things that Ghana needs today is economic growth and innovation. I think it would be a travesty if we have any outdated laws on our books that impede economic growth and innovation by creating unnecessary barriers, impeding entrepreneurship, and stifling business activities. I don't know of any, but I hope that we would have laws that provide more favorable regulatory framework, supports innovation, promotes investment in businesses. That is one way we can position the nation, to attract both domestic and foreign investment, stimulate the economy, and that will lead to overall economic prosperity for all. I also think that we need to review and amend some of these outdated laws to provide clarity, and certainty, and build that public trust in the legal system. When laws are not very clear, when they are ambiguous or no longer relevant, it really undermines the rule of law and the confidence that citizens have with regards to their legal rights and their protection. So I think that someone needs to listen to Professor Tuguba and lead the way through comprehensive consultation involving more legal experts, the society as a whole, and also policymakers to review and possibly amend our outdated laws.
All right. Well, let's get into some other stories then. On page 5, ECOWAS chair in Senegal to meet Sall over postponed elections. That's Macky Sall. And yes, now we keep talking, and ECOWAS has been forced to do something, the leadership of ECOWAS. If you keep sitting down, it's like Henry Ford said, if you keep doing things the same way, you keep getting the same results, right? Nothing will change unless, of course, something else, some other factor has changed that will make your actions yield different results. So that's interesting to see. Nigerian President Bola Tinubu is meeting his Senegalese counterpart Macky Sall in the capital Dakar as a constitutional crisis continues there over the postponement of elections initially scheduled for this month. Tinubu, who is also chair of the Economic Community of West African States, is in Dakar for a one-day trip days after the bloc's region foreign ministers held emergency talks in Nigeria's capital, Abuja. Sall's decision to push back the February 25 presidential vote has plunged Senegal into one of its worst crises since independence from France in 1960. Then, Nigeria mourns Access Bank CEO as authorities investigate crash. I'm sure since you are in the financial sector, I'm sure you followed this story about the CEO of one of the country's largest banks after he and 5 others were killed last Friday in a helicopter crash in Southern California's desert area. Herbert Wigwe, chief executive officer of Access Bank, and his wife and son were among the 6 people on board when the aircraft went down shortly after 10 p.m. near Interstate 15. Of course, we also know that they were going to watch the Super Bowl event, I believe, between the Kansas Chiefs and the other team, the Kansas Chiefs coming through. And unfortunately, this is what happened. What is interesting is that within those same days, within that week, another helicopter incident involving 5 Marines happened, dead. The CEO with his family dead. And then there was another incident, I think, involving 2 people. And people were asking what exactly was going on in that region. And people were also, speaking to regulatory efforts and whether the right stipulations were being stuck to in allowing these flights to take place. In other international stories, Stoltenberg criticizes Trump's NATO comments, saying any suggesting that allies will not defend each other undermines all of our security, including that of the U.S., and puts American and European soldiers at increased risk, NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg said in a written statement. Trump had suggested that those countries that were not paying up their dues in NATO could be targeted by Russia. As for Trump, well, if the Americans opt for another dose, I guess that would be... the interesting thing is, it's not just them, because whoever gets elected as president there basically shapes global policy and even peace to a large extent. But anyway, I don't know what your reflections are on those international stories. Macky Sall, the CEO, Access Bank, may his soul rest in peace, together with his family, and NATO's Stoltenberg on Trump. Any quick thoughts?
Yeah, my thoughts and prayers with the family of the CEO of Access Bank. But I would like to react to the Senegal story about Macky Sall. And if we have time, I would like to touch on Trump's comment on NATO as well. You know, I took some time to read a bit more about the situation in Senegal. And I must admit that Senegal or its leaders run the risk of tarnishing the image of the country as one of the most stable and enviable democracies in the sub-region. A country that hasn't experienced any of the military takeovers that West African countries have experienced. You know, President Macky Sall's antics so far, including postponing elections indefinitely, colluding with lawmakers to extend his mandate by 10 more months, all these, right, it smells of constitutional coup, as the opposition leader Khalifa Sall rightfully is calling it. There was one fatality reported, and that could have been avoided. I am tempted to ask, if indeed President Macky Sall has concerns about the eligibility of the presidential candidates, shouldn't the Electoral Commission be in a better position to handle that and disqualify any candidate who is not eligible? Or better still, isn't that what the constitutional courts are supposed to be doing, and not the executive and legislative arm of government? That is a problem we have in some parts of Africa, Ben. Insatiable hunger for power that oftentimes is characterized by bad leadership. We're not learning from our history as a continent. Every time our leaders have completed their terms and refused to leave, then it created several problems, including socioeconomic destabilization in these countries. Look at the case of the Gambia. President Yahya Jammeh, who served this country from 1994 to 2017. He initially considered defeat in the 2016 presidential elections, but he reversed course and allegedly he said that there were electoral malpractices. So he refused to go. This created a political impasse and caused fears of violence. Of course, eventually that enormous regional pressure that they mounted on him paid off. He was forced to leave, right? It is the same Senegal whose armies entered the Gambia to help remove Jammeh from power if he didn't concede to Adama Barrow. Then we have our own late grandpa, Robert Mugabe, who ruled Zimbabwe for 37 years. His refusal to step down, despite extensive protests and pressure, that led to serious political and economic catastrophe in the country. Well, we saw some of these worst types of hyperinflation in the world, unemployment, and serious human rights abuses. His own party, ZANU-PF, colluded with the opposition in a bid to impeach him before he eventually resigned. Then we have Laurent Gbagbo, who ruled Ivory Coast for over a decade.
Right.
Today's election led to serious political. All of this, we should learn from this. And even right now, right, in the case of Senegal, one would expect President Sall to learn from these events in the 2012 election, when his own predecessor, President Abdoulaye Wade, controversially, he tried to secure a third term in office.
Exactly.
The social unrest and all of that.
Yeah.
Say that again?
No, I was saying exactly. It appears they never learn. You can talk about Laurent Gbagbo and his predecessor, Alassane Ouattara, who has got himself a third term, unconstitutionally so to speak, with ECOWAS looking on, and now Macky Sall and your reference to Abdoulaye Wade. So it appears they are no better than their predecessors. I was just corroborating what you were saying.
Exactly, and this is why ECOWAS needs to step in more forcefully. I don't mean with boots on the ground, but their messaging on events in Senegal should be forceful and very clear to prove to all those that are skeptical of the organization that it is still committed to its mandate of regional peace and integration. I believe in this mandate. And I read that ECOWAS, they pleaded with Senegal's political class to urgently resolve the impasse and restore the electoral calendar. I think their messaging should be strong. It's a good thing that the delegation from Nigeria is going over there to try and help resolve the issue. But I expect ECOWAS to be more forceful and make it very, very clear what will be the replication implications of some of these things.
All right. Let's get into the other papers very quickly, and it's a wrap. 259 MMDAs inaugurated nationwide as assembly members take office. GCB Bank appoints new board chairman. There's also 7 arrested over alleged murder of Drapa Dubai CEO. I don't know whether you've chanced on that story, but it's one that has left a very sour, if not bitter taste in the mouths of many. 143 Ghanaians voluntarily repatriated from Libya. I'll do those 2 stories on pages 3 and 8. So let's get there. 7 people have so far been arrested at Drapa in the Upper West region in connection with the alleged murder of the chief executive officer of the Royal Cozy Hills Hotel, Mr. Eric Johnson, at the facility on Sunday. According to a statement released by the Ghana Police Service on its official Twitter handle, Kumbata Kpebu was initially detained to assist the police with investigation after the regional crime scene management team visited the scene of the incident. Updated police statements indicated that 4 more suspects, whose names were given as Dokuri Foster, Brahma Kasim, Beyua Felix, and Michael Kluge, all workers at the hotel, were nabbed Sunday evening. The other 2 suspects, who were identified as Favor Norbe and Charles Tuoze, also staff of the Royal Cozy Hills Hotel, which has been nicknamed Drapa Dubai, were arrested on Monday morning for investigations. I don't know whether you followed the story, but the facts are that, I mean, if you follow, you would realize with the killer knowing to climb a ladder, go into the exact place where he was. It's a huge place, knowing exactly where the man would be after he had finished having his bath and all of that. It just points to the fact that there must have been some inside knowledge or someone on the inside who gave intel on this person. Another thing that beats my mind, the fact that when the killer was done, he went out in the man's car, and our correspondent Rafiq Salam, who knows the man very well and has been to his place a number of times, speaks of the fact that even if you were entering his housing unit, you wouldn't go with your car. It would be parked outside and you would enter with his car, which meant that it was only his car that could go in and come out. And this person even knew that. You would also ask yourself, the security personnel, and some of them have been nabbed as well, allowing the person to leave. Maybe they didn't see the one who was driving. Maybe the assumption was that it was the boss who was in it. But were there no... It leaves for a lot of questioning, but we'll leave the police to do their work. For example, this person later abandoned the vehicle that had been used. Forensics, for example, are we going to be able to get any fingerprints or something of the sort? I'll just do these ones in addition. 143 Ghanaians voluntarily repatriated from Libya. A total of 143 Ghanaians who traveled to Libya in pursuit of better opportunities were voluntarily brought back home on Thursday night via a chartered flight. This number comprised 137 men, 6 women, and 5 children. 21 of them had moderate medical conditions, including 2 who were wheelchair-bound and 1 suffering from blindness. This brings to a total of 5,142 Ghanaians who have willingly returned since 2017 under the International Organization for Migration's Voluntary Humanitarian Return Assistance Program. I had someone reach out to me who I had spoken to years ago, just a few months ago, reach out to me and say he was in Libya, he had been in prison at a point, there had been a militia group that had got them out, and now he was with... It was a convoluted story, but when your citizens are willing to make the dangerous journey to a place like Libya, then you know that there are problems. Quick thoughts?
First, I think we need to implement policies that will make being in Ghana attractive to the youth, and they don't feel the need to go through all of that trouble just to get to greener pastures. I think it's a failure from a policy perspective. Now, let me quickly comment on the Drapa issue. I think it's a saddening issue, Ben. From the little I heard about him, he was a true visionary and a key player in the business community. So definitely his loss will bite a lot deeper. Someone who was such an accomplished and exceptional entrepreneur, from what I'm hearing, a smart business leader, and I'm sure he was a mentor to many. It is a huge loss, but it is my hope that the business community and his family may take solace in the fact that he had a huge impact, right, and left an indelible mark on many lives and on the business community. Before we got on this on your show, I was watching your news when citizens over there were giving testimony or account of how good the man was, how supportive he was in the community. So he left an indelible mark. If you read about what he had accomplished in the business world, you'll notice that he was not just a clever and a successful business person, but also an inspiration for many aspiring entrepreneurs and leaders in the region. So let's honor his legacy as we work through coming to terms with such profound loss for the nation and for the business world. We have to celebrate his accomplishment and also his huge influence, like I said, in the business community. Again, my thoughts and prayers are with his grieving family and friends and his employees at this time, and I hope that ongoing investigations can yield some closure for the family and hold accountable those responsible for this barbaric act.
All right. Final batch of stories and we can go. You may have heard of the National Media Commission's chairman, Mr. Kpebu Ayeboafo, himself, a former journalist himself, I believe an editor at some point. And he has said that the media blackout proposed by the GJA against some people who have violently attacked media people, and the likes of maybe Hawa Kumsin have been mentioned, the likes of Farouk Aliu Mahama, all these issues are being investigated, that the blackout or the media not deciding not to have anything to do with them is not the way to go. The GJA has rebuffed that, and I'm wondering though, Mr. Ayeboafo, of course, like I said, he's from our stock, he's been here, he's done that. He was appointed by this administration on the NMC, and then the NMC members voted him as chairperson. So some have wondered whether his comments are not because this is going against government and the same regime that handpicked him and put him there. Who knows? Whatever the case may be. The Daily Guide says, Bawumia, the story I'll highlight, Bawumia better than Mahama. That's according to Kofi Bento, and he has caught quite some flack on the back of some of those justifications. I listened to Newsfile on Saturday with his justifications, and I wasn't convinced, but I don't know whether you were. And then the New Finder newspaper, Veep's tax reforms good, but can't wait till 2025. Professor Lord Mensah says so. He says, the tax reforms being proposed by Dr. Bawumia, they are good, but why can't he start implementing them now if he feels they can be done? You have a minute on these and we can go. You can pick one or two.
Yeah, I think I saw the news regarding the NMC and also DJA. And I'll tell you this, if you look around the world today, the nations that have stronger democracies are the nations in which the media thrives without fear or intimidation. So there is a strong correlation between the freedom of the press and the growth or strengthening of a country's democracy. This is because the media plays that crucial role as a watchdog and providing the nation with information and analysis. Of course, the media and its practitioners should be also held accountable and to higher standards of reporting, but they are indispensable to a nation's democracy. Not only do you guys inform the public, but you also promote transparency and also accountability. See how much coverage issues like the nation's debt, right? The debt crisis and all of those issues have received.
Right.
Ghanaians know more because the media facilitates the public debate and discussion on the issue protecting civil liberties.
Right.
That said, while these attacks on the media should be condemned in no uncertain terms, I think it is vital to mention that the media must also govern itself and protect its reportage from being biased and from misinformation, as we've seen across, not in Ghana, but in different parts of the world where misinformation is running rampant today. So I think in governing itself, if the media sees it fit to blacklist any individual or entity who encourages violence against them, then I have no issues with that at all.
All right. Thank you, Doc, for joining us for another segment of the News Review. It's been refreshing, and we wish you the best of the day.
Thank you.
That is finance analyst Dr. Wisdom Kofi-Addo. He is our guest. There's more coming your way in sports, but right before that, Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic helped us to bring you this segment. almost to bring you the segment. So they're offering you, if you're a man, prostate screening for free. If you're a woman, fertility screening for free. Just head to any of their branches across Pentex opposite the Shell signboard, Kumasi Chronomabwe here behind the Angel Educational Complex. There's Takrade Energy State, Tema Community 22, Techiman Hanswa, and Estiaman Zama. Their call lines 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. End Point Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. Do stay with us for sports. Up next.
Good morning. Let's bring you sports here on the AM show with me, Muftau Nabila Abla. The Black Princesses are currently in France preparing for the African Games 2023. The competition will start on March 8, but the football matches will start on March 9. And head coach of the team, Yusuf Basigi, says that preparation will help the girls and psych them up to compete for the ultimate goal of winning the trophy when the competition starts on March 9. And unfortunately, we apologize for the hitch in the file of Yusuf Basigi. But let's hear from the president of the Ghana Football Association, Ket Okreku. He says that his administration will be building a 40,000 facility, not a 40,000, a 40-bedroom accommodation at the Ghana Football Association Technical Center, which is the Ghana Man Soccer Center of Excellence in Pram Pram. According to him, they want to uplift the standard of Pram Pram to an international one. UEFA Champions League football returns tonight. Let's take a look at the fixtures for the round of 16 of the competition. We have Copenhagen come up against Manchester City, defending champions of the competition. RB Leipzig, they will play Real Madrid. So these are the fixtures in the round of 16 in the UEFA Champions League for tonight. Copenhagen, they were in the group with Manchester United, and Manchester City manager Pep Guardiola says that they will pose lots of threat to his side. That's your sports now. We do have more sports stories on myjoyonline.com. You can also join us later this afternoon as we continue to bring you all the updates in terms of the world of sports on all our bulletins. We appreciate your time.
Welcome back on the AM show. We get into our big stories now. And 7 years down the road, 3 years into the second term of President Akufo-Addo, he's had his ministers helming affairs for quite a while. In recent days, we've heard about a planned reshuffle of some of the ministers, and lots of names have been thrown into the fray with switcheroos here and there. But what exactly is going to happen? We anticipate ahead of these dynamics. And we want to hear from you today, even as we interact with our guests, in terms of what your expectations would be if there were any such reshuffle. Which minister or which set of ministers has performed exceedingly well? How about those who have not exactly met your expectations that you feel should be set aside altogether? Which ones have performed but need to be moved elsewhere? Well, joining us for a discussion on those, we have our guests joining us for now. Martin Kpebu, he is a lawyer and a man who shares his thoughts on myriad matters. Martin, good morning. Thank you for joining us on the AM show.
Yeah, good morning, Mr. Akufo. Morning.
All right. It's good to have you join the conversation. So to start off, I'd like to find out from you, looking at the performances, basically, of the ministers of Akufo-Addo, what would you make of them? But even before you hazard a guess or a reply for me, I'd also like to let you know that we've put this out there on social media. Joy News on Facebook. If you have any comments, you can pipe them through Facebook. That is Joy News on Facebook. And shortly, we'd be right here in the studio looking at some of the responses you have. But back to you, Mr. Kpebu. Looking at the set of ministers in this second term of Akufo-Addo, if you have had to move around, including the trades minister, who now has gone independent. But for those who have stayed, what do you make of their performances?
Okay, it's a couple. I think the measure, I have a number of measures I'll use. First of all, if you analyze from the perspective of corruption, and that's where we should be starting, because when you have a government that is stealing from citizens, then that's no government. So to the extent that Akufo-Addo and his government have not been able to fight corruption, that means all of them, they've all performed below par.
Hello, Mr. Kpebu. Mr. Kpebu, can you hear me? Well, it appears we've lost the connection to Martin Kpebu. We'll try to get him back and find out what more he had to say. But he was making an analogy there that to the extent that all these ministers have been in this administration with all the corrupt activities, then all of them have failed. Mr. Kpebu, we lost you briefly. You were making a point about all the ministers having failed. Can you go back to that?
Yes. Yes. So, Mr. Akapo, my point is that once they, as gatekeepers, are not able to take care of our resources, and so our corruption perception index has tanked, and it's been at 43 for 4 years, and compared to previous administration, it shows that we've lost the battle. It means all of them must go. It means that all of them are in charge of serious thievery. Yes, we are allowed to make that inference. Because why is it that the corruption perception index, we are not inching up? We are not even getting to the 48 JM once had. Why is that we are not getting the 47 he once had? Atamils had 45 at a point. Why are we not getting that? So once we use corruption as an index, it means the whole band of them, Akufo-Addo plus all of his ministers, they failed. They are superintending stealing. So it doesn't matter that you see roads. And listen, we shouldn't give opportunity for people to just come and say, oh, they've built this number of roads, this number of hospitals. At what cost? At what cost? That is the problem. So much leakage. So once you look at it from that index, that their fiduciary role of protecting the public purse has failed, it means all of them collectively have failed. It doesn't matter that one minister can come and say, look, he hasn't taken any bribe from a contractor, etc. No. From the way our system works, that minister would know another minister who takes bribes. Has that minister reported the one taking bribes? That minister will know his chief director or other subordinate who is taking bribes from the contractors, and these contractors complain all the time. You remember they even complained to Professor Stephen Adair, and Adair came and said it on air. But I know our contractors, the moment you ask them to come out publicly to justify, then they don't want to do so because they are scared of blacklisting. But let's quickly remind the contractors that in our past, contractors used to go before committees and spill all the beans. So if our contractors have not read the Olenu Commission report, they should read it. They should get their lawyers to summarize for them. The Olenu Commission report is the one that dealt with the import licenses, what Katie Hammer was trying to introduce recently, and for which reason the parliamentarians and everybody kicked against. It bred corruption those days. So coming back, we're just making the point that let's look at the output. Once we are not doing well on corruption, everybody is failed. Don't come and tell me that my ministry has built so and so roads, has built so and so hospital, agenda 111, etc. Because the plain truth is that before these people can steal, they have to steal through procurement. They have to steal through the projects. So that's the analysis. And so once the outcome shows that we are losing so much money, that is it. Then another subset of it.
Martin Kpebu, just 2 quick points. One, are you saying that all the members of this administration, you make a pretty blanket statement. You're saying that, and let me even start from the metrics on the CPI, the Corruption Perceptions Index. I believe it's 48 at a point and 46. I don't know whether there's a 47 in there or a 45, like you mentioned, but I do recall 48 and 46. Yeah, I do recall 48 and 46. Maybe a 45, but I don't know about a 47. We could always check. I mean, I could always check on that. But I was just saying,
you got 48. Atame's got 45.
Okay, right. It's the 47 that I'm saying. I don't know whether there was a 47. I know there definitely was a 48 and a 46 somewhere. But I'm saying that 2 quick points. One, can you hear me? Can you hear me, Martin?
It was 47. Is that?
Okay, right. We can play around the numbers. I didn't recall a 47, but that's fine. By what you're saying, you're suggesting that all the ministers... I think Mr. Kpebu is struggling to hear me. Mr. Kpebu, can you hear me?
Yes, it's better now.
All right.
Yes.
I am saying we can go past the numbers. It's not really a point I'm trying to make. I was just trying to find out because I don't recall a 47 in there. I recall 48, 46, and maybe a 45. But I am saying that by what you're saying, isn't it a blanket statement to make? Because then you are suggesting that all of these ministers are thieves, your words, simply because they've been in a corrupt administration, as you paint it. Is that a fair analysis to make and to say that none of them can be extricated from this, that they are all involved in it? Is it a fair assessment to make?
Absolutely, Mr. Akaku. Absolutely. And then, though you said we should just go past the numbers, I've opened the numbers, so let's briefly go through. In 2012, we had 45.
Hello? All right, we appear to have lost Martin Kpebu one more time. Martin, we lost you briefly. You're back, so go ahead.
Okay. So, Mr. Akapo, the reason we are looking at a collective, you see, we are analyzing the government. So, for those who want, the question is that, what did they do about it? Mr. Akapo, remember these great philosophers, different ones, have all said it in various forms, that evil triumphs when good people do nothing about it. Evil triumphs when good people do nothing about it. So the yardstick I'm using to measure those who want to claim that they are not part of the thievery, they are not part of the corruption, is that what have they done about it? What have they done about it? Let's go back quickly. We can mention Minister for Foreign Affairs, Shelley Ayokobochi. She went to the passport office and complained about corruption there, right? And sent some of the immigration workers away. Can we see what came out of it? Yeah, she complained that they are the ones who are corrupt, yet ministers are blamed. Yeah, she took a little step. How has she finished it? So when she finishes that process, then maybe I can count her out. Go to Amuakwata, number 2. Amuakwata also complained that there was corruption in the ministry. He just complained. I understand there was one that he took the person through the disciplinary process, but they don't want to even give us details. So if you've taken somebody through the disciplinary process and you can't give details, how can we trust? We need to see whether there was due process. So these are 2 ministers I know so far, I can remember from my mind, came to complain about corruption. But as I've said, they haven't seen through the complaints because talk is cheap. Everybody can come and sit down and complain. And if you just complain and you haven't taken positive steps towards eradicating it or towards holding those persons accountable, I can't give marks for it. So I am looking for the evidence. What have those ministers done? Are there any other ministers you recall? Amewu also said the PDS deal was what? The people involved were crooks, something like that. He said, yes, it was filled with corruption, the PDS deal. But after saying that, what else did he do? Mr. Akaku, are you with me?
I am with you. Hello, Martin. I can hear you. I am with you.
So Amewu also complained about PDS deal. Okay, good. So Amewu also just complained about corruption, and that was it. What steps did he take? I've heard so many other cases of corruption where you hear ministers mumbling against the corruption. But what positive steps are they taking? What positive steps? Let's go to Baumia. Baumia says.
So Martin, just to situate the conversation, Mr. Kpebu, I'm just analyzing it from this angle, though. So are you saying, and mind you, I didn't necessarily focus on corruption. I wanted you to give me just a brief assessment of which ministers you felt had performed, which ministers you felt had not performed. Just a bite size, because I'm moving on to the next guest before I come to you. But are you saying that there's nothing good, no personality who has done anything good in this administration? Is that your suggestion?
Absolutely, Mr. Akaku. Absolutely. I mean it. 1,000 times you ask me this, that's the same answer I'm going to give you. Because as I said, I'm measuring output. I'm not measuring likability, mass appeal. Yes, some ministers have mass appeal. But you're asking me a hard question. And I'm also giving a hard answer. I'm not talking about likability or the mass appeal. What I'm looking at is that we are leaking seriously. The economy has tanked. Look, I've just remembered SML, finance minister, superintending what? The fleecing of the ordinary Ghanaian, leaking our resources. How am I going to say such people have done well? An economy that they drove into the ditch. How am I going to give anybody any positive marks, a pass mark? So the whole bunch of them, plus Akufo-Addo, chief, incompetent in chief, all of them, they failed. We are measuring outcomes, not measuring just buildings that have sprung up, roads that have sprung up. No, what have gone into those roads? What have gone into the buildings? What are the outcomes? Why is it that you hear Harriet Thompson, the UK High Commissioner, saying that if all the revenue we make were going into development, Ghana would be a far richer country than now? Mr. Akaku, did you hear Harriet Thompson say that? The UK High Commissioner?
Yet.
Yes. So that is the point. You say it. So let's look at, we are measuring outcomes. Let's not do anything like any emotions. We are just dealing with the cold facts. Government that has been horrible.
Okay.
Government that constitutional development.
Let me bring in, hold for me, Martin. It is clear what your positioning is on this matter. Let me bring in Pograve Boachidankwa. He's government spokesperson on governance and security. Pograve, good morning. Thank you for joining us on the AM show. What do you make of President Akufo-Addo's ministers now that, to all intents and purposes, a reshuffle is in the offing? Is a reshuffle even necessary? Some would say it is crucial. Is it necessary for you? And if so, which ministries do you feel need some reshuffling? And the reshuffling isn't necessarily that people have not performed, but that by any metrics, in any system that works, you would want to move people around to ensure that people don't become too comfortable in a certain area and then start underperforming. What is your reaction to that?
Benjamin, a very good morning to you and a very good morning to your viewers. And to state that I'm concerned about the trajectory within which lawyer Kpebu is making his assertion. I'm concerned because I'm wondering on what authority he is making assertions of failed ministers and mentioning corruption. But let me just say succinctly. The government of President Akufo-Addo has various ministers at various posts. and also has various CEOs at agencies of ministries. The ministers and the CEOs are government appointees who implement the government policies at the various ministries and the various agencies. Now, it's important is that at every stage, whenever the president desires to make a change on leadership, he does that on the premise of how he feels things are going. It will be very difficult for me to isolate Ministry A and leave Ministry B, but to be able to state that whatever that the president does in terms of his decision as it relates to a reshuffle, is best in making that decision, and he is best in deciding that Minister A moves from Ministry A to Ministry B based on how he wants things done on a larger value scale. I would think is that the government of President Akufo-Addo.
Hello, Paul Grave. Paul Grave, can you hear me? Let's do this one more time. I know the network can be a bit patchy, but we're going to try to get Paul Grave back. Paul Grave, can you hear me now? It appears the network issue hasn't been resolved yet. He disagrees with the statements being made by Martin Kpebu in respect of President Akufo-Addo's ministers in this third year of the second term. Let me also bring into the conversation Dr. Michael Ayamga. He's a development economist, University for Development Studies. Dr. Ayamga, good morning.
Good morning, Ben. Thank you for having me.
All right, straight to the point. We've had a conversation. Martin Kpebu has taken an entrenched position, saying that on the back of corruption and other issues, all the ministers of President Akufo-Addo have underperformed. I just spoke to Paul Grave Wachidankwa, who disagrees, and he was going on to make some points, but we've lost him. I'd like to find out from you, if you were to assess, first as a group, the ministers who have been in this tenure for President Akufo-Addo. Only a few have, like Alan Tremartin, who decided to go independent, contest in the MPP and go independent, have stepped aside. So as a group, how would you assess them? And then individually, if you had to take them apart, who would be your brightest star and who would be your least bright star?
Ben, this is a very difficult question. Because, you see, it's like asking somebody to select the best player in the Black Stars.
It's like asking someone to do what? Select the best player in the Black Stars.
Yes. Because the purpose for which the team is put in place is to play football, to win matches, advance in competition, win trophies, and maybe make Ghanaians happy. So on this call, you may have a kudus in there, but the very purpose for which the team is put together has not been fulfilled. So this so-called League of Ministers is cosmetic and a ranking in just for rankings. I do not think that to say this is the best minister, this is the next best minister, and this is the last, you Ghanaians or that Ghanaians, anything. I would say for certain that if it was possible, you will have to reshuffle everybody, remove everybody, right from the Jubilee House down to the clerk, and because if your interest is in the final output, the deliverables, the take home, the bread and butter issues, the economy, the state of our institutions, everything you look at is undesirable. So how then do you say the architect of this outcome, one is better than the other? So it is a very, very difficult thing to do. But yet, even in some of the worst schools. That in schools that everybody doesn't pass. You know, we have something like that in Ghana here, where everybody in the school fails. Yes, there's somebody who still emerges first. So if you want me to do that, I'm fine. I can say A or B. But to say that this is a minister who has delivered what the people expect him or her to deliver, you will need a very strong lens to go through this cabinet and find one. I'm not mincing words. I'm not garnishing it. I'm talking from reality, my feeling, gauging the mood of Ghanaians, and comparing us to what we used to know as people of Ghana. This is a disastrous cabinet that has led Ghana into a ditch and brought our economy crumbling.
So are you suggesting that there is no bright spot in this administration? Is that what you're saying? I mean, even when things are at their worst, there would be a bright spot somewhere. You're saying that there's none you can find, none you can commend?
As I just said, I spoke in context using the season, the mood of the season to describe, and that's why I said it's like trying to select the best player in the current Black Stars team. Yes, there are good players there. They have Kudu. You could say he's one of the future. If something good comes, if you have a better government in the future, you could rely on such a fellow to be a point of inspiration. But the rest have more or less tanked seriously. To say, okay, this is a reshuffle, bring in this and take out this. It's like selling the coach to take out Inaki Williams and bring in Bakari. So that is the summary of it. The state of Ghana is the state of our black stars. They are just mirror images of each other. And whether you like it or not, yes, there are good players there. There are some positives that you may take on. But in totality, they are a disaster. And that is what this government is. You don't have to mince words. I don't see the reason why you can get up. You have an economy that has just turned the corner, taken off, stabilized, almost gone into autopilot. They give it to you, you bring it down. Look at our institutions. Today, none of them is working. We don't advertise before we employ. You sit down there and someone selling Kobe at Makwala, all of a sudden, it's in the security forces. And you have people writing exams, failing, and turning up with results. So everything that you expect to go on well is not. And you cannot say that the architects, as I've said, the main drivers of such an outcome deserve to be ranked some praise and some malign. They fail as a team and they fail individually. If you want us to maybe do it this way, let me cast the question. Who do you think contributed the most to this mess? Then we can start talking about that. That is the right question you're supposed to me. That yeah, we are in a very chaotic situation, deplorable, hopeless situation. These are the people that got us here. But who do you think is the worst culprit? Then we have a question. Then we can begin to do that one. But as it stands now, no. Then I won't my situation by trying to rank people in the first year. No.
All right. Hold for me. Let me bring in Palgrave Wachidankwa. Palgrave, it doesn't appear Dr. Ayamga and Mr. Kpebu feel that there's any bright spot in this administration as far as ministers are concerned. But coming back to you, you were making a point. Is this even necessary now? It's the 4th year of the 2nd term. What difference will a reshuffle make at this point?
Benjamin, I think that both Martin and my other colleagues on the panel are being very dishonest.
They are being very dishonest.
Very dishonest with their assertions on the performance of government.
But
no, Benjamin,
no, I'll let you go. But some of the wording, at least I have tried to control the wording. If you say they are dishonest, should we take your word as honest?
Martin has used very insensitive words this morning.
And yes, I have chastised him on some of them.
It If he's being dishonest, I need to be able to say that he's been dishonest. Martin has been extremely dishonest with his affections. And Benjamin, it's important that when we are having a conversation on national discourse, honesty is key, regardless of your political colorization. It's important. It is important that we assess the performance of government. We assess the shortfalls of government. But it is sad to see that you make a blanket statement that the government has been abysmal, that the government has not performed. Then where are we? It's important. So when I come, I need to be able to set a record straight that the comments that they have made is extremely dishonest of the realities on the ground. Benjamin, you are assessing ministers. You are assessing the government of President Akufo-Addo. You are assessing from the first term and assessing from the second term, which is the continuation. You are assessing the performance of ministers. You are assessing policies that have been implemented by this government. There are policies that have been implemented by this government that was not in existence in the Reshuffle government. You cannot look at these two and say that the government has not performed. That is being dishonest. Now, we have heard that there is an imminent reshuffle. You are asking the question if the reshuffle is necessary. Benjamin, every government and every leader holds the right on when to make a change of their ministers, ministries, agencies, and departments. It is on the value chain of what the leader is seeing and what the leader wants to be done. Of course, President Akufo-Addo is in the final lap of his governance. If the president wants to cement his legacy, he needs to make changes, which is what we are hearing that he's going to do. He needs to complete projects he's not completed and begin to ramp up. So a new government would come in. And we propose that that new government is going to be the New Patriotic Party under the leadership of Alhaji Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, the flag bearer of the New Patriotic Party.
The same person who is vice president, who has been in this administration throughout, the same person your other colleagues are chastising, he's going to make the difference?
Exactly, because you see, anyone who says that Alhaji Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia has been part of a mess does not understand the entire governance structure. And I do not accept and admit that this government has been a mess. This government and the government of President Akufo-Addo has performed more and better than the Reshuffle government. And even Alhaji Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, as Vice President of the Republic of Ghana, has initiated policy statements more than any sitting Vice President in this fourth republic. And Benjamin, you know the truth. Martin knows the truth.
You speak the truth for yourself. Palgrave, speak the truth for yourself. Don't rope me in. Speak the truth for yourself, as you know it.
Well, you are a journalist, so you know the truth. You are a journalist, you know the truth. You know the objective truth. Make a comparison, an honest assessment. Make an honest assessment. Martin should make an honest assessment of the vice presidency nature of John Dramani Mahama and compare that with Alhaji Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia and tell me who stands tall. Tell me whose water will not sink. Compare them. Tell me the policy directives that Dramani Mahama brought as sitting vice president. And compare that. Really,
I think this conversation about vice president versus vice president, which has come to the fore now, is only because there must be some justification so that someone also becomes president and then we can square off, right?
That is not the issue.
If it weren't, I mean,
John Dramani Mahama has been president. The Ghanaian people throughout
Palgrave,
opportunity that was given unto him.
Palgrave, we can either have a conversation or we can have a monologue. Which one would you like us to have?
I think it's important we have a conversation. If you allow me to express my views.
Thank you. But just as I interject the others, I will have to interject you as well. I'm just saying that must it be throughout, from Vice President Akka all the way through Aliu Mahama to the others, vice presidents haven't been looked at in a certain light. All of a sudden, it's being considered because of what? I want you to answer that before you move on.
It is because we have an innovative out of the ordinary thinking vice president that we have had in this Fourth Republic, which is why we are having this conversation. We have a vice president who has contributed significantly to policy directives from the executive to the president. So compare from Accra, tell us directives that Accra brought when Jerry John Rawlings was president. Tell us directives that Aliyu Mahama brought when John Ajikun Kufuor was president. That is significant enough. Tell us directives that Ivan Satamil brought when he was vice president to Jerry John Rawlings.
So all of them, none of them did anything, right?
When he was vice president to Satamil. So it's really about the catalytic effect.
So none of them did anything. It's Dr. Bawumia who came and did something,
None
right?
of them did anything significant. The key word is significant. None of them introduced policies that is out of the ordinary, wiser than the 32 significant policies that Alhaji Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia has presented.
All right, hold for me.
It's ensured that there's paperless post. It's ensured that we can get birth and death linked onto the digital platform. It's ensured that every single child today that is born will have a unique identifiable number. It's ensured that every single child who is in senior high school has a laptop. It's ensured. I think the number of things that Alhaji Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia has ensured. Gold for oil, gold reserve. We have had gold in this country all throughout the years. We need to be able to be objective in our analysis and praise where we need to praise and condemn where we need to condemn. But if you condemn everything, you're not being objective.
All right. Do hold for me. We'll be going to the touch screen to find out what some people have to say. Of course, if it's good, it is Dr. Bawumia. If it is not, sometimes it's a different story altogether. But let's find out what some of you have had to say in respect of this question about a reshuffle and everything in between. Sweetie, so you are right by the board. What exactly was the question we posed and what have been the reactions so far?
Right. So this morning we asked you across our social media platforms that who has been your best performing minister under President Akufo-Addo's second term. And on Facebook, this is where we start. We have some pictures of the ministers there. Vincent Confidence Abochi says there is no best minister. Akaribo is also saying that there is no best performing ministers among them. They are all zero. Let's go down now and say Samuel Ayamga is saying, in your view or opinion, as a media house or outlet vested with the power to monitor, and I can see that.
All right, so we'll try to rectify that and we'll get back to the board to find out what other messages you have. We have a plethora of those messages. I see some more messages, Sweetie.
Yeah, so Samuel Ayamga is saying that in your view or opinion, as a media house or outlet vested with the power to monitor and ask reasonable questions, which ministry is among them that you can say there is a great improvement and we're asking you the question. So you tell us who you think is the best or worst performing minister. Gogo Ghana is also saying the second term best performing minister, in my candid and honest opinion, is Honorable Hawa Kumsin. I wonder why that is. Someone is also saying tourism minister. Philip Johnson says their performance reflects that of the entire government. What is the performance of Nana Akufo-Addo? God will punish. This is DJ saying God will punish all of them for Ghanaians. Well, I'm sure most people share your sentiments because the country is hard. Well, these are what we have so far. Oti Ajagba is saying a minister for Nana Akufo-Addo's second term. Yes, a second term. What do you think? Tell us what you think. With abysmal performance of Akufo-Addo, and you are talking about best performing minister, it appears nobody is actually impressed with any of our ministers so far, per what we are seeing here on social media. Robert Bukari is saying none, because the president is acting in their capacity. Few examples are foreign ministry. President does all the traveling and all the meetings with the delegates, all the ministry president is there for them. Ask any street guys, and none of the ministers are known apart from the president. Well, the president is basically saying that the president is doing all the job on behalf of the ministers, and so we don't know these ministers. We don't see them at the forefront of the ministerial activities that we are supposed to be experiencing them. Villa is also saying senior minister Osafo Mafu. Right, but we also asked another question about should there be a reshuffle, because we are sensing that there's a reshuffle that is imminent. Maybe I'll come back to you with that later, Benjamin.
All right.
But so far, it doesn't appear that our audience are impressed by any of the ministers. Yeah.
Well, let's see whether we can get any others who are impressed by the performances. And you can single out any minister that you feel has performed, lived up to expectation from where you sit or where you're watching us this morning. But let me quickly, is there something you'd like to come through with?
Yes,
Suki?
yes. So we asked for best performing minister. Now we're asking who's been your worst performing minister under President Akufo-Addo's second term. And what did you say when we asked you this morning this question? Let's begin with Zach Young, or Charles Ayebo Zach Young. Of all the ministers, all of the ministers, including himself, even including he himself is the worst president ever in the country, sports minister, the sports minister, every one of them, including the president himself. So I think it's just the same view across board. Who's the worst performing minister? They're saying all. Who's the best performing? They're saying none. Kobe Dismal, you're saying finance minister. We've had series of talks about the finance minister and how he should be, moved. It's interesting, Benjamin. I'm wondering if the reshuffle actually happens, whether the finance minister will go or will stay. Let's look forward to that.
I don't know whether that is even on the table. Looking at the way things have gone, I don't think that is on the table.
It's been a while since Ghanaians started talking about or requesting, even Parliament to move for the vote of censure.
Exactly.
For the finance minister to move. As to why he's still there, question for the gods. Kojo Boahen is saying Matthew Opoku Prempe Opoku. I see. Interesting. They are all passengers. Well, they are all passengers, not citizens, like the president told us. Well, that is it on our social media, on Facebook this morning. Over to you, Benjamin.
Well, that is the tale of the tape. Your responses: best performing, worst performing, and anything in between. At least I hear someone who mentioned Mavis Hawakumsit. That's an interesting pick, interesting choice. But let me come back to my guests. I believe Martin is still with me. Are you still with me, Martin?
Yes, Mr. Akufo, I'm here.
Right. So hold your horses. Hold your horses, Martin. Hold your horses. So the point is, I was just saying, hold it for me. The point is, we've posed the questions about the best performing and the worst performing. You have made your pitch clear in terms of the fact that you feel none of them is worthy of your time because they've all fallen to corruption and everything in between. But even in the worst of anything, sometimes you want to bring about change. What do you feel about this reshuffle? Is it needed? Do you have any expectations of a future reshuffle under this administration?
Much because, you see, once President Akufo-Addo ignored our calls for a reshuffle years ago, at the beginning of the second term, and he just ignored us, it's like he's just using all the executive power alone and Article 58 of the Constitution. It doesn't see that under the preamble and also Article 1, they say sovereignty resides in the people. And so when people talk, public opinion is something that he needs to gauge and use in governance. We just have to leave him because right now, he's already caused the damage. It's too little, too late. He has caused the damage. There isn't much that any minister can do in the next 6-7 months. The elections are basically at foot now. So really, there isn't much. Akufo-Addo has just demonstrated that he lacks the requisite knowledge and competence for governance. So he's run us aground for 8 years. We've lost the opportunity to strengthen our constitution. You see how we're going to do the district assembly elections on non-partisan basis. When he lost the public debate, then he pulled it, etc. So this is a president who has no regard for the people. He just sees executive power as power to aggrandize himself and to make his family rich, he and his ministers. So it's already caused us too much harm. I don't know what 6 months.
But Mr. Kpebu, we say better late than never. You have called time and again for a reshuffle. He's doing it now, assuming that actually happens. And you're saying that if it happens now, it is too little, too late, so it will mean nothing. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. So here, too little, too late triumphs over better late than none. So too little, too late is triumphing. And that's how you do. When you're doing interpretation, sometimes looking at the context, you would have to necessarily give greater weight to certain principles than others. So it's the context that determines. He had 8 years. He ignored us the first 4 years, just minor. The next 4 years, that's this current one, for 3 years, the same thing, except those who had to necessarily go. The Adjoa Safo case, where he had to bring in Baumia's sister, Hajia Zuera, as gender minister, and then Katie Hammond taking over from Alan Kojo Chremantin, right? Yeah, so Mr. Akapo, he's already spoiled everything. He's destroyed it. I don't know what 6 months can do. These ministers were not at the helm, those coming, at the time the budget was being drawn. So they didn't have any opportunity to do their own innovative and original policy contribution. So the policies and everything have already been done. So Mr. Akapo, this is the pay for the submission, that the budget was drawn, the budget and the economic policy was drawn without these incoming ministers. So they had no hand in it. And so right now, everything has been put in. It doesn't look like they would have the gravitas to change much policy in the mid-year review. It doesn't look like so, because what we are looking at is a trajectory of this government for the past 7 years. So these incoming ministers are not in a position to make much of a change. No. So let's say, let me give you concrete examples. An incoming local government minister, can he get President Akufo-Addo to make us go to elect MMDCs on non-partisan lines? And that is crucial for our development. That development at the district level should not have politicians in charge. I mean, partisan politicians, NDC, MPP, CPP, etc. No, we want it to be non-political, so that as Kpebu, I can go to the mayor, tell him certain things, and because he, as a mayor, is not politically aligned, he's more likely to receive it than a current situation where it's MPP. So he has to toe party lines. So, Mr. Akapo, you see the example. An incoming local government minister cannot secure me election of MMDCs on non-partisan lines. So such a minister, when he comes, is not going to do much for me. An incoming local government minister cannot accelerate decentralization within the next 6 months. We've shown that our decentralization hasn't gone on that well. Within the next 6-7 months, that minister cannot do FOCO, like we say locally. So you see that why I say it's not much. If the minister were to come, let's say about 3 years ago, a fresh minister, or 2 years ago, then we could have called upon him that he should push Akufo-Addo to get us election of MMDCs on non-partisan lines. But right now, it's late. It's late. Such a thing cannot be done. Let's go to the finance ministry, if you would like another example. So in the finance ministry now, let's look at the things that we want. We didn't want such agenda 111, big colossal building of 111 hospitals simultaneously. No, we didn't need that. Now, a new finance minister is not in a position to go and reverse agenda 111. He cannot. It's too late. All the buildings are already at various stages. So the more you even delay, then the more we'll get cost overruns. So such a minister cannot do much. Number two, an incoming finance minister cannot do much to reverse the SML rot, the SML contract, where Finance Minister Oforiatta asked for it to even be extended to the upstream petroleum sector. So SML has made so much money over the years. An incoming finance minister doesn't look like he is in a position to prosecute SML. He doesn't have what it takes. He's not going to be able to walk to the OSP and say he supported.
So Mr. Kpebu, if I get the thrust of what you're saying. So looking at all these metrics from your end, it's a no. And at this point, it is too little, too late to make any impact. I'll come back to you for your final comments, but let me go on to Dr. Ayamga. I'd like to do this just to streamline the exercise a bit better as we conclude, right? There's the finance minister. I mean, both you and Martin Kpebu have expressed dissatisfaction, grave dissatisfaction with the performance of the ministers. But let's take them apart bit by bit and find out what scores, for example, you would give Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta. There's Communications Minister Ursula Akufo. There's Health. There's a Minister. Energy, NAPO, Dr. Matthew Opoku-Prempeh. There's Trade. Now we have KT Hammond. There's Agric, Brian Champong. There's Roads and Highways. I mean, Kwesi Amakwata. All of these people are there. If I asked you to rate any of these, what would be your ratings or your scores on a scale of 1 to 10? Dr. Ayamga.
Thank you, Ben. I'll tell you, because I'm a teacher, you have given me this task, and I'll probably let you have a feel of how rigorous I mark. Let me start with the Transportation Minister. You just have to pass with the Accra to Mexico, and you will know that he gets an F, you even probably...
So you're talking of Roads and Highways, right?
Yes. I think you just need to go through the Accra to Mexico. You don't need to come up north here, and you know that if you get an F+, it should be ratificated. The Finance Minister topped the league of abysmal ministers in the history of this country. I started following finance ministers right from the days of Kotiboshe all the way to Kobna before. He comes across as one of the most powerful but incompetent ministers. He took an economy that was growing to one that is entered recession for two continuous years.
In the first few years of the MPP, the economy grew, did it not?
Well, they took an economy that was growing at 3.7%. So you will talk about...
And they increased that.
In 2016, when they inherited the economy, it was growing. They inherited an import cover almost 4 months. They inherited an exchange rate that was growing about 3.8 to the US dollar. So everything you want to look at, the finance minister has reversed this country. They inherited a debt that was about 10 billion, they have 100 billion, they are taking it to 10 billion, they are taking it to over 50 billion and so on. So the numbers don't add up. Pragmatic in the country, you look at businesses, they are falling up. When they took over, Ghana was seen as the shining light of Africa, to the extent that the president could go around the world telling them that Ghana is beyond aid. He saw the fundamentals, the structures that had been put in place, and it felt like Ghana could do without aid. Today, the world says that Ghana is beyond help, so they don't even want to lend to us because they think if you lend to us, we waste it. That is the scorecard of the finance minister. I think it's an F due for ratification. He should have gone long ago. You look at the petroleum ministry, and you need to look at petroleum pricing. Go for oil deals that is as opaque as possible. We are still dealing with petroleum prices between 11 and 12 cedis for a liter of petrol. And you are looking at almost food prices rising on the back of petroleum. Meanwhile, we produce and export petroleum products. You can't want me to pass such a fellow due for ratification. I've told you, I don't want to sound...
Okay, so basically, if I get where you're going to give all of them Fs. You've given the Roads Minister an F+, Finance Minister an F.
I'm not going to give everybody F. I'm not going to give everybody F. I think...
okay, so let me frame it this way. Dr. Ayamga.
I'll give Honorable Ambrose Berry a D. Because
you give Ambrose Berry a what? A B or a D?
A D.
Okay.
If you want me to go to SHS rating, let's call it a D7. He looks more calm, maybe a point of some confidence if you look at the demeanor and the posture of all the other ministers. But he's still part of a system that has failed, and that is what has worked against him. But I think that at a personal level, we are inferior, at least we are not like our neighbors, and we have been able to at least keep some form of security in the country. There's some stability, but some flashes here and there. But for the behavior of police and others in conflict and other things,
right.
Probably a fact. But yes, beyond that, I don't think that it is the rest of the ministers. Any means are non-applicable. They have not written the exam well.
Okay. All right. Dr. Ayamga.
I wanted to say something. You see,
I'll let you say that. I'll let you say that in your final comments. I'll let you say that in your final comments, and then we can wrap. Let me bring in Paul Grave Wachidankwa. Paul Grave, are you still with me?
Benjamin.
Hello, Paul Grave.
Yes, Benjamin, I can hear you.
Right. It doesn't appear our two other guests are at idem as far as you are concerned in your take. But I'd like to find out from you, assessing these ministers and the grades they are giving them, do you feel it is fair? And what do you think should be the way going forward as far as a reshuffle is concerned?
From a governance angle, it's really unfair for these two persons to rate in this manner. I mean, I know Martin is a lawyer. I don't know whether he specializes in governance and ministerial work. I'm not too sure of Professor's background as well. But I mean, it's important that when you are assessing ministers, okay, you assess on the value chain and their liking skills. I mean, anyone who's gone through academic studies to a highest level will know that their liking skills. You rate 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, 0.5. So you rate on performance, you rate on character, you rate on policy, you rate on issues of budgetary allocations, you rate on leadership changes, you rate on charismatism, you rate on what a person has been able to add on in terms of value chain. And so really, when the president, Akufo-Addo, does a reshuffle, and Martin states that there's nothing that can be done in terms of what the people are going to add, and so you should leave the other people there, then he doesn't understand what the entire governance structure is, because leaders vary from person to person. And so policies might not directly change, but there will be an impact on that. And so if you have a minister who comes and is able to convince cabinet that having reviewed this policy, it is important that we look at this in this angle, I think that cabinet can make a policy edit on issues that have been done. So I want the conversations to be done on an entire value chain and an objective manner. I would not want to rate a minister on an A or a B or a C or a D. I would rate ministers on a value chain, on a liking scale of what used to be there, what they have added on, the significant contributions they have made, and how that has become a civic responsibility, and how that will stay in the particular ministry post the ministry's exit or the minister's exit from that particular role. I would wish the president the best in his decision of a reshuffle. I would wish that the people that the president brings on board would contribute significantly to the last few months that the president has had in cementing his legacy and ensuring that the new Patriotic Party, which is the party of choice for the Ghanaian people, would win the 2024 general election.
Well, thank you, Paul Grave, for adding those comments. Dr. Ayamga, you said you had a brief bit. I'll give you, together with Martin, a minute each. Unless Paul Grave, there's anything else you want to add. I want to be fair to everybody.
Well, once they go the last round, I'll do my last bit.
I think you should do that now, because when I move to them...
No, let them, they might react to some of the things I was saying. I think it's fair that they go around, please.
Paul Grave, I am coordinating this. I suggest you go ahead.
Benjamin, I appreciate your coordination, but it's important that you be fair. Allow them to go around as you have. Because went round and they came to me. They have the last bit, I don't have the last.
Okay. So if time doesn't suffice and I'm unable to come back to you, then you know that you dug yourself into this. Martin Kpebu, please go ahead. Very briefly, sir. Final comments. Hello, Martin. Yes.
Yes. Yes. So the point is this. Remember at the beginning, I told you that I was using the outcome basis overall, the state of corruption, because we are looking at keeping our resources, protecting the public purse. That is the indicators I chose to use. And the economy, what the Ghanaian is feeling now. So it's not within Progress right to choose for me what indicator I will use. Each case determines what indicators you use. When the ordinary Ghanaian is suffering, can't afford 3 square meals. Over 10% of our population are below the poverty line. As a result of COVID, this economic downturn, we got about 850,000 again of our fellow Ghanaians falling below the poverty line, right? Etc. In such a case, why would I come and sit down and be doing some soft analysis that don't take me anywhere? So I'm looking at the outcomes in terms of the packet of the Ghanaian. And that's the same thing Dr. Ayamga has done. And also the corruption, because Mr. Akapo, the point we are making is that money we keep losing to corruption is money that could have bettered the welfare of the Ghanaian. So we have no business sitting down to do what impact. Bottom line, has it kept corruption? Bottom line, does it put food on the table? Bottom line, does it improve our packets? Remember, even Bawumia, that he's lauding so much, says that at the end of the day, right, there's no better economic policy than what you feel in your pockets. Yeah, Bawumia, I'm paraphrasing. There's a statement like that Bawumia himself says that at the end of the day, there's no better policy than what you feel in your pocket. So at this time, we can't come and sit and do puerile arguments, puerile analysis that don't bring food to the table. How can you sit down and encourage impunity, encourage corruption by lauding these ministers? Oh, come on.
All right, Mr. Kpebu, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us this morning and for your stance that you've adopted. Let me come to Dr. Ayamga briefly as well. What are your parting shots to us?
Yeah, Ben, I think that Wajidankwa has been very unfair to us, trying to question our background. I think that Martin is a respected lawyer. I am a scholar of international review. You should check our track record. From here, I'm going to teach a class of PhD, Economic Development Policy. And I'm going to teach them that economic development is growth plus change. And that change has to talk of institutional change, talk about cultural change, and talk about change in well-being. So when I was assessing the ministers, I was assessing them based on what they are supposed to do, their core responsibility, the outcome we are going to look at is that we wanted to see growth and we wanted to see positive institutional change and positive well-being from Ghanaians. We look at all these things, we don't see it. Our growth has been abysmal. And to the point that even after restructuring debt, the IMF had to write that we are still in debt distress. That means that the debt-to-GDP ratio that Dr. Mohamed Bawumia is quoting that is 36% is actually a benign fundamental of the economy because it is supposed to facilitate your access to credit. With that still, nobody will lend to us. That is how hopeless the Ghanaian economy has become. And I don't think that it's always fair to want to crowd your credentials and your academic achievements before you make a simple contribution to a TV or radio discussion. It just shows that you are empty. And I think that next time you want to do that, just go on to your...
I think though, to say that someone is empty, yes, I do agree that he may have impugned your credibility as professionals in a way, but to also call him empty is not the best positioning, is it? If you are minded to do so, I would humbly ask that you retract that.
I only want to say that anybody who is drafting and cleaning his credentials rather than concentrating on what he's supposed to say probably hasn't got anything inside him.
Okay, so that's better. I just want you to retract your wording that he's empty.
I do if that's how I came across. But I was just saying that it's not fair for him to go on that trajectory. We were using methodology like a scale is things we teach to undergraduate students. It's not a robust measure of anything. Yes, mention like a scale and think that it is an advanced tool for assessing anything. No. That is what we use. We even teach farmers and rural assistants.
Okay, all right.
Appreciate more robust analysis. So
sure.
Let's stop here and then let's say that we are dealing with a government that has tanked badly based on what it's supposed to do.
Right. Dr. Ayamga, we have to go. We have to go. Thank you very much. Paul Grave, You have the last word.
Academic tolerance is important, and I think that Dr. Yanga has gone off the board because academic tolerance is important.
Can you focus on the matters and let's wrap,
I will focus
please.
on the matter. He has a PhD. I'm also graduating with my PhD as well in business leadership. So I think that academic tolerance is important. We can agree and disagree, but he shouldn't go on those trajectories. I think that the final point for me to state is that the President Akufo-Addo and the government of the day, which is the government of the New Patriotic Party, has ministers that have outperformed than any other ministers in this republic. And it's important that we set a record straight. The policies that we have implemented are policies that are novel. They are policies that will stand the test of time. They are policies that will continue to be implemented by the Ghanaian people and by the Ghanaian civil service, even after the government of President Akufo-Addo. And I want to thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. So we had joining the conversation Pogre Bwache-Dankwa. He is government's spokesperson on governance and security. We also had Dr. Michael Ayamga. He's a development economist at the University for Development Studies. And we also had joining the conversation Martin Kpebu, a lawyer. We'd continue on this trajectory as we take these apart bit by bit in coming days as well. But for now, let's go back to that issue in respect of the owner of the Cozy Hills Hotel in Jrapa. There are further developments that we can report. We'll be getting the scoop on that after the break. Well, back to the Jrapa issue now, where the owner, the businessman who actually put up the Cozy Hills Hotel, popularly known as Jrapa Dubai, over the weekend, Sunday to be specific, was, well, he had his life taken. We are careful in suggesting what it could have been because of the investigative dynamics in there. But to give us further updates on the matter and what we can expect moving forward, we have Rafiq Salam, our correspondent in the Upper West region, joining the conversation. Also joining the conversation, Dr. Jones Opokuware. He is a criminologist and he is with the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. Good morning, gentlemen. Let me start with you, Rafiq. What is the latest you can share with us as far as this is concerned? 7 people arrested now, I believe.
Yes, 7 people so far arrested, and also the team of crack CIDs deployed by the Inspector General of the Ghana Police Service, Dr. Akufo-Addo, also in town. They arrived yesterday, and then they headed straight to Jiruba, and then after that they moved to the Royal Cozy Hills Hotel, which is about some 4 or 5 kilometers away from the Jirapa township. And then they started work. And so when they got there, they got to the executive mansion, otherwise known as the presidential villa. And that's a private residence of Eric Johnson. And they were there almost, they spent the greater part of their time yesterday at the private residence. And then after that, they moved to where the vehicle was parked in town. And then also did a lot of assessment there before they closed the day. So actually they closed working yesterday around 8-9 p.m.
I see. And I also know that there have been interactions with some specific members of the community whose lives this businessman, Eric, had impacted personally. And some of them have been sharing their stories with you. What do they have to share?
Not many people at Yoruba wants to talk about the issue because they are really a pain about it. There are several people that I took my microphone to, and they told me that they are still grieving and they don't want to share any word regarding that. But the few that spoke to me really spoke passionately about the love that Eric had with them. There's a lady that I spoke to yesterday, Fozia, who is somebody from Wa, but the last 80 years has relocated to Juba and is doing business. Hardly a day passes without Eric sending someone to come and do even Momo. And so the lady is saying that her very existence at Jirapa depended on Eric, and that has made her business to boom. There are other people that we spoke to. Some were nurses and also nursing students. You know, the Royal Cozy Hills Hotel, they are also using students of the nursing training college. So they school there and then also work at the Royal Cozy Hills Hotel. And so because of that, they are able to support themselves at school. And also, there's a lot of development activities that he has also embarked on. And then also, we also like to promote the tradition and culture of our people. And then also, which has also to do with tourist attractions in the region, the Woolly Mushroom Rock, the Ant Hill, and then also the Bolu Slave Defense Wall. And so the people that we spoke about are really not happy about the way things pan out. And even from the youth front, they are saying that starting from today, all the youth in the region, in the Yoruba should be wearing red for a week as a mark of respect for him.
I see. Well, we'll come back to you at some point, Rafiq, on any other developments that may be available. But let me now bring in Dr. Opoku-Ware, who also joins the conversation. He's a criminologist at the KNUST. Following the proceedings, the dynamics, for me, I've had a lot of questions to ask, right from this person being able to scale this wall, get inside, have access to the facility, the person being able to know exactly where he would be, because even Rafiq Salam, who has been to this place of residence a number of times, did not know exactly which room he slept in, which room he resided in. Some details don't add up. We also have the person being able to take the man's vehicle and go to the gate, honk, and be able to make his exit and leave the car at some point or at some portion in town. Some things don't add up for me. But let's start with you, a criminologist, and how you look at an incident like this. What do you make of it?
Well, thank you very much, and a very good morning to your viewers. I mean, you've described the whole situation much perfectly, and this is what raises a lot of issues and a lot of concerns, regarding what probably and who probably might have done this to Mr. Eric Johnson. When murders happen, in fact, a lot of times murders are known as domestic offense. The reason why we call them domestic offense is that a lot of the time the victims may be known to the perpetrator, or the perpetrator may be known to the victims. Okay, so if, for instance, if you go to countries like UK and the US, about 2/3 of their murders, that is how they perceive it. And if you look at the murders that we have also in the country, they seem to mimic the same pattern. Only few, for instance, only ritual murders and those kind of murders that normally deviate from this kind of characterization. But if you look at what has gone on, the story we have shared so far, and what we've known so far, as a criminologist, analyzing this pattern of murder, it only suggests to me that one, the perpetrator may be someone who was known to the victims or may have been known to the victim, and therefore suggests to me that this is somebody who may have an axe to grind with the disease, or probably is somebody who may have been contracted to do something against this man, obviously because the man may have had some kind of communication or relationship with whoever is involved. So for me, everything seems to suggest to me that this perpetrator actually knew the victim, and the victim probably also knew, the perpetrator, because as you described, without that, it would be very difficult for you to know with that level of precision where the man is, how to have access to the place, even the exit and entry points, and to be able to, attack the man at the time that he did. Because based on the information that we got, this was a man who had probably just finished taking his bath and was even had a towel, covering him. And so for somebody to pounce around him exactly around that time seems to suggest to me that this is somebody who probably knew the routine activity of this man and therefore knew that this is the time that if I had to attack, I may be successful in achieving whatever I wanted to achieve. So that is exactly how, as a criminologist, I'm trying to piece together, the crime and whatever has happened to be able to build a good theory for it.
Now, looking at the people who have been arrested, some members of his security detail, other workers of the establishment, if I may just give you a quick outline. So we have 7 people so far. Some of those recorded include one Kumbata Kpebu, who was initially detained to assist the police with their investigations. There are others, Dokuri Foster, Berima, among others. Also, workers at the Royal Cozy Hills Hotel. What would be the scope of an investigation like this? You suggested that someone may have had an axe to grind with him. Some may even suggest that it was an inside job. Our correspondent also went out there. Rafiq Salam went out there, and he mentioned to me yesterday that a lot of these workers were very tight-lipped about the situation. What does that point to?
Okay, so for such kind of investigations, it is very key that we widen the scope. So while it is important that the workers and people who were working for him has been arrested based on some level of suspicion, I believe that it shouldn't end there. The police must widen the scope of the investigation and include, for instance, even friends and family members. Because you see, as I said, murders like this are basically domestic offenses. Domestic offenses because the victims may know the perpetrator. So we have to apply in what we call, in criminological sense, the principle of 6 degrees of separation, where we try to connect everybody within the network who was closer to the person. Okay, so when you do that, you don't only focus on only the employees. You have to now limit it, try to, as it were, expand it to the friends, to family, and all those people within the person's network of significant others. It is only when we are able to do that that we can begin to now profile people that we think are suspects and then begin to eliminate those that may not directly be related to the incident. We can then really eliminate the people one after the other until we are able to pin it down to the person most likely to be the perpetrator. So I'm of the view that what the police have started is good. It is good they talk to those people because as a domestic offense, those people immediately come to mind. But then let's also move to friends. Let's look at family members. Do you think that there may be people who were closer to him, probably as friends and maybe family members, who had an axe to grind with this man? Probably they were jealous of his investments. Is it that sometimes some of them may have certain, bad dealings with him? So all these things are questions that when we are able to expand the scope, we will be able to single, all the issues out and be able to draw down directly to the actual perpetrator of this heinous crime.
Now, I posed the question yesterday about whether, per the modus operandi, it was felt that the people or the person who had perpetrated this dastardly act was from Jurapa. That's another conversation altogether. But looking at what the police has done so far in effecting some of these arrests of persons who are under some suspicion, and now 7 have been rounded up, to all the other dynamics you have seen, we hear now that the IGP, together with a high-powered team from the police service, is in Jurapa. What would your expectations be on the police service in terms of what you expect of them moving forward?
Well, I think it's a very good move for the IGP and his team to be there. In fact, what they've done actually satisfy one of the 3 cardinal principles of criminal investigation. Okay, there are certain things when you are doing investigation. We call it the golden rules of criminal investigation, and one of them is that you have to trust no one. Okay, so that is something I expect, that in the course of the investigation, I don't expect the police to be leaving a lot of, gaps. They should trust no one. They should make sure that everybody within the chain is questioned. Okay, 2, we have to check everything. So on the crime scene, and I'm very happy that the IGP himself is there. Okay, so on the crime scene, we have to pick every detail, every minutest detail, and I'm hoping that the IGP will ensure that his boys, who are there as forensic experts and as crime scene investigators, are able to pick those minutest details that will help them to piece together the evidence to nail the perpetrator. And also, if it is possible, the third golden rule is that if it is possible and it's so important, you have to do it yourself. So that is why I'm saying I'm very happy that the IGP himself is there and is trying to oversee that, everything is done properly, because this is the time that leadership has to be brought to bear. This is the time that securing evidence and gathering of evidence and information is key. And I expect that this is a time that the IGP will show more leadership and get, his men to be able to work to get the perpetrator. It is only this that we can build a confidence in our policing and also in our criminal investigation systems.
Rafiq, are you still with me? Can you hear me, Rafiq? You would have to unmute.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. So as far as the IGP and the police are concerned, what more can we forecast in terms of what they will be doing? If you've had any interactions with the police, what can you share with us as we wrap?
I told you that the police are playing their cards closer to their chest, and so they are not telling us any information regarding what they are investigating on. But we can only tell you where they have been to some of the places like the private residence, and also interacting with some few people in town, and also going to the site where the vehicle was parked. As the security analyst Ruffle said, the police at this particular stage are leaving no stone unturned and trying to unravel the mystery surrounding the death of Eric Johnson. And so many in the region are expecting them to widen the scope of the investigations, not limiting it to the people who are at the hotel, but other areas, so that to enable them get the perpetrators of this dastardly act.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Rafiq. Rafiq Salam is our Upper West regional correspondent. He has been on this beat and he will continue. He will keep his attention trained on that to bring you the latest information from there. We also had Dr. Jones Opoku-Wari. He is a criminologist at the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. Well, still to come on the AM show, we're going to be contemplating the Teachers Education Workers Union and what exactly the industrial action is amounting to. Are they remaining steadfast? We also have that conversation on making the most in an economy that, so to speak, has actually gone bust. What would you do? We have an interaction with someone who, guess what? He has decided, though he had read accounting, to do other things to make ends meet. He's been checking people's blood pressure, checking their sugar levels, just to make ends meet. We also have a bit of an update on the weather. Do stay with us. We'll be right back.
Welcome back on the AM show. It's time now for a conversation about the air that we breathe. About a week ago, we know that the air quality in Accra was heavily polluted with PM 2.5, which is fine particle matter 2.5. A week on, we are going to find out how is the air, quality faring, and are we doing things to reduce the pollution in the air? And if not, what else should be done? And how are we protecting ourselves in this season, especially because it's Harmattan, and it is part of the reason why the air pollution is on a high. So joining me for this conversation is Ruffle Boache. He's the manager at Kotoka International Airport. He's at the Meteorological Office. Good morning, Mr. Ruffle Boache.
Good morning.
It's a pleasure to have you here. So, can you give me a rundown, as it stands this morning, how is the air quality index of Accra? Because I just checked from the IQS site, and it appears we are still at PM 2.5. How are we faring?
Good morning to your cherished viewers. So for the past 2 weeks or even 3 weeks, the quality index was above 300, and above 300, we say that it's very unhealthy, and very hazardous. Sorry, it's hazardous.
Right.
Below 300, we have very unhealthy. So we crossed over 300, and it was very hazardous. It was hazardous. And then some 3 days ago, 4 days ago, we slowly came down to even less than 200, where yesterday we were even at 164, which is becoming quite normal, except that it's still not too good for people with asthma and people with all those respiratory disorders. But it's a bit okay now for those of us in the southern half of the country, because we are having a relaxation in the factors or the systems that brought in these dust from the Sahel regions. We are having a relaxation in that, except that the northern part of the country are still experiencing it, and we therefore we still ask that the various measures that we came up with, you should still exercise them, because the northern half is still experiencing the dust.
What do you think accounted for the reduction from 300 to 125, and now that it seems is rising back again? What accounted for the reduction, and why do we, if it's wind coming from the Sahel, I assume it is passed over, so what's accounting for the increase again? Rafael Boache, can you hear me? It appears Rafael Boache is frozen, but he was telling us that this started about 2 weeks ago, and we've seen a reduction about 3 days ago from 300 all the way to 200, and even came all the way down to 125. But it appears the problem has not completely gone away. As of this morning, the air quality index is still standing at PM 2.5, and so we're just talking about what's accounting for that and what we should do. He says that it is wind coming from the Sahel region blowing over to us in the southern side. That is why Accra has a heavily concentrated fine particle matter in the air compared to the other regions of the country. Rafael Boache, can you hear me? Right, it appears we've lost Rafael Boache, but since the Harmattan season is still in and we do not know for sure when this would blow over, it's prudent that we continue to stay safe, close our windows, wear a mask up as much as you can, and, get an air purifier in your room so that you reduce your risk of respiratory illnesses associated with this. We also know for a fact that aside the wind blowing from the Sahel region that's causing this pollution, some activities of us, persons, residents here in Accra, are contributing to the heavy pollution that we're experiencing, like exhaust fumes from exhaust and emissions from all over, burning particularly. We spoke with GMET and EPA, who admonished that we stop burning as much as possible. And so it appears we have Rafael Boache back on. Rafael.
Hi.
Hi. So I was asking, what accounts for the reduction that we experienced 3 days ago, and why do you think it's rising again? The pollution of the air, I mean.
Yes, there are a lot of activities, domestic activities and industrial activities that pollute the atmosphere, that pollute the air. And those are what we call the anthropogenic activities or human-induced activities. However, we are in the season of the Harmattan, or we're, let's say, at the exiting point of the Harmattan, where we still have one last burst of the dust to come in. So that burst of the dust which came in came to add up to the normal pollution, or let me say the human-induced pollution that we already had. I think I heard you mention about burning and all those things. So these pollution is already in the system, but not as significant as we experienced last few weeks, because the natural one, which is the influx of dust from the Sahel region, came in and added up to it. That's why we had that massive increase.
So what you're saying is that the situation is not changed. Although we saw a reduction, it's still back to the state where we were when we were experiencing the bad, PM 2.5.
The PM 2.5 are the particle sizes, the very, very small particle sizes. It comprises the dust that came in, as well as the normal, the human-induced pollution that I just talked about. And it's still there, though the factors, the natural factors which brought in the dust have begun to relax. And that is why we are having visibility quite okay now, or let's say improving. However, the human-induced factors that I just mentioned are still going on, the burnings are still going on, the industrial pollution are still going on, and if measures are not taken, those pollution will still be there because they are human-induced, and we can control them. However, the dust, which is a natural event, is out of our control.
So are you saying that the wind blowing from the Sahel to us here, especially in the southern parts, is something that's going to be lingering for a while?
That is the season that we are in, where we came up with an advice, I think 3 weeks ago, mid-January, we came up with an advice that we are having intensification of the Harmattan, because the factors that bring in the dust have begun to intensify over areas like Chad, Niger, and Sudan, those areas. So once they intensify, the winds track down south here, and as they come, they blow the winds, the dust that has already been raised over those areas and dump them here. So as those factors which intensified and brought in those winds have relaxed, then we are gradually exiting the Harmattan, especially those of us in the southern half. So we are gradually exiting the Harmattan from now, especially as we enter into this weekend. We expect some formation of clouds in the atmosphere, which we have not experienced for quite some time now. So we are going to experience some clouds, even some places in the middle sector, especially Ashanti, Eastern region, those mountainous areas. We expect that by weekend, that is Saturday, they may experience some isolated cases of rain. So we are gradually exiting the Harmattan for the southern half, but for the northern half, the case is still the same. So we should exercise great caution.
So we should expect some rain this weekend?
Exactly, some isolated cases of rain, especially for the middle sector, as I mentioned, places within Ashanti, places within Eastern and Volta, especially places where there are mountains and forest areas. We expect that some isolated cases of rain will occur in those places.
So will the rain wash away the particles in the air and finally let us breathe this air that we need so much?
Yes, for the southern half, but not for the northern half. For the southern half, when the dust in the atmosphere actually will also contribute. I mean, the already existing dust in the atmosphere. Now we are getting some moist winds from the ocean. Initially, all our winds were coming from the north, from the Sahel, as I've mentioned. But now for the southern half, we are getting moist winds from the ocean. And these moist winds will mix up with the dust, already existing dust in the atmosphere, forming some clouds in the atmosphere and pouring down as rain over those areas that I've just mentioned. So those dust will surely come down, and then we have some breathing space.
But Mr. Boashi, we've been seeing this clouds form for some time now, but it never really rains. Are you sure that this time around, by weekend, it will rain?
That is why I mentioned some places. I made the emphasis on some places, because there are lots of factors that contribute to rain. You can't just have moist winds and therefore we are saying we are going to get rain, or we just have cloud formation and say we are going to get rain. No. But there are places where these factors will be very dominant, especially in that I mentioned mountainous areas and forest areas. Exactly. So those places, they can have some isolated cases of rain, not a widespread cases of rain throughout the country. No, we are not expecting that.
Well, thank you so much. I'm sure we're all looking forward to some rain to clear the atmosphere for us. That was Ruffle, who's manager at the Kotoka International Airport Meteorological Office, and he was giving us updates about the state of the air quality in Accra. And he's saying that we should expect, fingers crossed, some rain over the coming weekend, and hopefully it would reduce the pollution in the air. But it's time for you to enjoy this beautiful story, feature story, about a young man who's a first-class graduate from the Methodist University with an impressive 3.7 GDP. But because there are no jobs in this economy, he checks blood pressure and sugar levels of market women in Oprah Square for a living. Here's the story of Nicholas Nuno.
In a city where academic degrees don't always open doors, the story of a 36-year-old first-class graduate biting hard on the rope of unemployment opened my heart to embrace life in the best way possible. But before I tell you the story of Nicholas, ponder this. What would you do for work if your first-class degree could not earn you a white-collar job?
This market was my first place of contact. That was around 2013. I had only 2 cedis in my pocket and the machines were there. But to start was a challenge.
Nicholas is a 36-year-old husband and father of one. He graduated top of his class from Methodist University with an impressive 36 GDP in accounting. But for 10 years now, has been the bustling market center and his clients traders in the markets. He's not a doctor, neither is he doing the work of a doctor.
This is what I've been doing for a living. I check blood pressure and then sugar level. Take 2 cedis when checking the blood pressure and then cedis when checking the sugar level. And then this is what I've been doing to support myself as a man in this economic hardship. I've been doing this work for the past 10 years. I started in 2013, and by then I have not pursued my university program. It got to a time I realized that my energy was depleting, and I cannot go on doing this kind of job. So I have to pursue a professional development. Hence, I embarked on studying accounting at the Methodist University, Ghana. Now I've graduated and currently doing my chartered accounting program and currently doing level 2. And like I said, this is what I've been doing to support my education when I was at the university, and this is the same work I'm doing to support my professional program.
When opportunities are scarce, pride and ego take a backseat. Nicholas chose not to be defeated by unemployment, but to redefine his purpose. Nicholas first got his diploma in business studies from the Center for Business Development in 2013. Due to his inability to land a job, he picked up the sphygmomanometer, the instrument used to measure blood pressure. This work saw him through further education at the Methodist University for a degree in accounting. Nicholas is one of thousands of unemployed graduates in Ghana. Data according to the Ghana Statistical Service indicate that overall unemployment rate in Ghana is 13.4%. Youth unemployment rate 19.7%. This means 2 out of 10 persons of Ghana's labor force between the ages of 15 and 35 are unemployed. 25% of youth in Ghana are neither in employment, education, or training. Now, according to economic research from the Institute of Statistical, Social and Economic Research, only 10% of graduates gain employment within a year of graduation. Nicholas is one of thousands whom I wonder how they're surviving. According to the World Health Organization, the burden of hypertension is very high in Africa, where 2/3 of cases are found. One pivotal way to manage the risks associated with hypertension is regularly checking blood pressure and consulting with health professionals. This is where Nicholas comes in, and to these market women, he's a lifesaver.
Me checking a brain na say my test pressure e kosoro a brain na nti oba no be check mama a e na o kire me say e normal ana e high.
This is something she does on a regular with Nicholas, and it helps them because they don't have the machines and the resources to constantly be going to the hospital.
So that be when me tia me ya. Me to me who say e kosoro ana say ba form. Nti so oba no be check mama a o kire me say mama e kosoro nti faduro pa na e kofom. Nti e mama e hu faso ne bi no. So me check na brain na na say e normal. E mama so me boto me yam.
They are grateful that they get to do this while here at work because not everyone who has the means, time and resources to go to the hospital and be checking. As early as 9 a.m., Nicholas began his day, and today I had the chance to spend a couple of hours with him.
To my best of knowledge, there is no regulation that requires that one must get a license before acquiring a glucometer or a blood pressure monitoring machine. So there are people who, for instance, they may not have the resources to acquire these items. And yes, so they are hypertensive and then they are diabetic. So the rationale behind this is that if there are people out there who can't afford to buy these items or this equipment, why don't I buy them and then do it for a fee? So, because for me, I don't think there is any regulatory requirement for that.
And you charge 2 cedis?
Yes, please. That is what they can afford. And then the sugar level, I charge at least 6 cedis.
And how much have you made so far?
So this is 20 cedis and some coins. I don't think it will be up to 30 cedis. Yeah. Let me see. Okay. So that is 28 cedis.
Must admit that Nicholas's positive outlook on his life stirred a bit of guilt in me because I realized this man has been dealt some bad cards in life, yet he remains hopeful and resilient. There was, however, that moment when he told me that he thought of ending it all.
That was in 2017, I think, around Kanishu overhead. I even decided to commit suicide. Yeah, because I roamed throughout the city of Kanishu Market. I didn't get anybody to patronize the service. So I felt discouraged and I was like, there is no hope for me in future. So the voice I heard was like, hey, I should jump over to end my life.
In the face of adversity, Nicholas teaches us that it's not always about waiting for doors to open. It's about creating your own path. He admonishes other graduates who might be struggling to remain optimistic.
If you look at the economy, like the statistics that I give to you, during our time, we are about 12,999 who undertook the National Service Program. But the question is, are there jobs available to absorb all these people? The answer is no. So if we say we are going to wait upon the government and then, how do we call it, for the government to create jobs for us, then we may end up doing ourselves a great disservice. So it is my admonishment to younger ones who have graduated that they shouldn't feel discouraged, they shouldn't feel ashamed, anything that will give them money. So far as the thing is not in contravention with any of the laws in Ghana, they should do well and then embark on such a program. Even with what I'm doing, it has always been my wish that if the government will see this and then generate a policy out of it, in a sense that it is going, because I'm not the only person doing this though, that he can train more of the younger ones, giving us accreditation or license so that we can offer what we call the paramedic services to the market women to augment the services that the hospital is providing.
For Joy News, I'm Sweetie Abochi.
That's the reality of some graduates in the country. But what do you think about this young man, first-class graduate with 3.7 GPA, who's checking blood pressure for a living? Now, what he's doing is identified a gap between, these women, market women, and their health, and how he can fit himself there and help them. Let us know what your thoughts are, your opinion are. If you're a graduate, how are you surviving if you do not have a job? We'll take a quick break. When we return, we open the phone lines and then you join the conversation. We'll be right back. Welcome back. It's still the AM show, and this is the last leg of the show where the phone lines are currently open. You get to join us on this particular conversation and anything else that we've been discussing since 6 a.m. that we assumed our seat here on the show with Benjamin Akakpo.
Well, I don't know what your take is on the ministers, those you feel have performed, those whom you feel have not lived up to expectation. Well, you can actually share your thoughts with us on that conversation. And again, if you're a young person having to suffer underemployment, which is the story that Sweetie Abochi did, where you've trained in one thing. Imagine an architect. I don't want to mention any other thing, but okay. So let's imagine an architect not being able to practice architecture, but selling sugarcane instead. It's not to say I'm not denigrating that work. We all need everybody in the system, but looking at the skill set versus what they would be doing, you wouldn't necessarily say that they are fulfilling the talent or the skills they have learned. So let's have a conversation on all of these. And for those of you still trolling Nigeria, Charlie, you know the reason one I saw from Kali J?
No.
He posted something and he says, Nigerians are like, okay, so you, Ghana, you are trolling us, but we placed second. Where did you place? And then
We didn't even qualify.
The response is, well, Nigeria, how come you are not celebrating Atiku? He placed second in the last election.
Bars.
Yeah.
But it appears we have a caller on the line. Hamza, how are you doing? Talk to us.
Fine, thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Ben. And
good morning.
For the good work you are doing. But I am very sad, since yesterday, listening to you on this giraffe. The giraffe, the murder case.
Right.
I remember not long ago, heading into December, you went there and I saw the environment. Joy News went there and I saw the environment and it was very good. And just after December, we are hearing this sad story. I'm very sad. Yeah, I have been very sad since yesterday. I thought yesterday we were going to open the phone lines, but it wasn't. I don't know, you didn't do it. So this has been what I want to share my thoughts on. I've been sad since hearing this story.
And you sound very low yourself, even speaking about this. We all are.
Your Hamza, your Hamza from Ashama, today.
Right. Thank you so much, Hamza, for joining the conversation. Of course, very sad what happened. Someone trying to, boost the economy of Japa, and for this to happen to him, I don't know. But we also have Hassan on the line from
Wali Wali. Yeah. How are you doing, Hamza?
I'm doing very well.
What's on your mind?
Please, I just want to touch on the issue of the ministers.
Oh,
I think we've lost Hassan. Hassan, we'd appreciate it if you could, call in again, if you could call back Hassan from Wale Wale. And if you're minded to do so, you can share your thoughts, whether it's on the Japa incident, which is being investigated, whether it's on underemployment. What's the gentleman's name again?
Nicholas Nuno.
Nicholas Nuno.
Yeah.
Trained in accounting, but unfortunately now he finds himself checking people's blood pressure and sugar levels and everything.
And he's been doing this for 10 years. 10 solid years. Yeah. Anyway, we have Edmund from Edumase Krobo. Edmund, good morning. What are your thoughts?
Good morning, madam.
What are your thoughts?
Mine is on the career.
Go ahead.
Yes, what I want to say is, you see, depending on the course you did at whichever special institution, I did building construction, right? So right from SS, after SS, I was with an architectural firm, so I started drawing. So I was making money before even going to police. So people can use their line of, depending on the course they did, and they can be practicing it. So I've been drawing for people since 2000. In fact, people should look at what they do and then they should be in line so that you shouldn't deviate or be doing something different from. Aside that, you can do other businesses aside that. That's what I think.
it's not, let me just say that all hands are not this equal, you know, and there are a lot of people who graduate reading various courses, and the industry is not large enough to absorb all those talents, you know. So this man, what he's doing is finding something else that can, you know, make ends meet. You understand? So it's not like he's just sitting down waiting for government to do something for him. This is what he can do in the interim while he tries to find something else in line with his career. But thank you for sharing your thoughts with us this morning.
Well, I mean, there's always that tendency. I know people, from time to time, you may want to go somewhere and not feel like driving, and you may want to sit in a ride-hailing service and all of that. A lot of those I speak to, interestingly, are master's students. These are graduates of master's programs. They've been to X institution, Y institution, many of them from our public university system, in everything from accounting to the social sciences to, I think, even mathematics and all of that. And some of them even trained teachers, and they can't find work, so they resort to that. And you can tell from most of them that if they had the opportunity, they would go into their respective fields. And
they'll do marvelous work. Most of them also go get these master's degrees because they think that it increases their chances of getting employed. So after the first degree, it's like everyone has a first degree. So what do you do that sets you apart? Yes, and then you go into a second degree, and then it becomes the same story. Ebenezer, good morning. How are you feeling this morning?
Hello, I'm good. You?
I'm okay, thank you. What are your thoughts?
For the guy who is doing the checkup, the market spaces for the woman, to know their stance about their pressure. But this is a situation whereby if the government is trying to set up a committee or a strategy to give out some amount to start up some small businesses, that would be good. But we have some instances whereby the government will give a money to the youth to start some wayside business, but that's good to misuse it. So both we should mind how we do our things in this country. When all of us try to do something for us, we all developed. But we are working hopelessness in the Kwaguma. They will diminish the country economy.
I'm not quite getting you, but I just wanted you to highlight this bit. You say there are times when government embarks on some initiatives and people don't use the money well. Which initiatives are you talking about?
Like the
NAPCO, maybe? But that's not government giving money to anyone.
I would have wanted some deliberation on what exactly he meant, because there are indeed programs where maybe government may try to recruit a few people, like, you know, the Nation Builders Corps, but it's not a permanent solution. We've had LEAP offering some help to some people. We've had other situations where there's the presidential pitch, but those are few and far between if you look at the huge numbers of youth involved. So I just wanted him to elaborate on what exactly he meant by that. We have another caller from Cape Coast, Daniel, this time. Hopefully it's not from the fires, the Lions Den. Daniel? Good morning, Daniel.
Yeah, morning.
What is on your mind that you'd like to share with us?
Okay, mine will be on the whole working and being done in school and not having the appropriate chance to work in your desired field. I for one strongly believe no matter how much the government tries to make room, there are always still going to be a number of unemployed people. If you take into consideration the number of people who are being enrolled in school year in, year out, I believe there's a system in place that enables you not just focus mainly on your core program is done, but it gives you the chance to branch outside of it. It will help a lot. I've mates who did, let's say, visual arts, and then they go outside the country to read medicine. But then you come to our country, Ghana to precise, and then have similar cases, then people need a different course, and they are not allowed to divert into a more suitable program where it goes the university. I won't be surprised if the accounting guys, for one, probably have the passion for, let's say, to read medicine or any of the medical related fields, but then due to probably his course in secondary, he couldn't do that. So I think it all boils down to our academics and all that. And then the government not putting the right structures in place. Not just the government, but I believe it's a sense way down to the Ministry of Education. Because it's like things are being done, but then nothing is done. We all focus on just getting everybody to the education, but then the platform and then the mechanism that they have to put in place to make sure when you're done with school, that's not all. It's not there. Thank you.
Right. Thank you so much for contributing.
Okay.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts. We still have a few minutes, and we'd like to hear from you. If you're minded to do so, call that number at the bottom of your screens, 0302-211-691, 0302-211-691. What is on your mind? I'd like to hear from many of you, though, on the trolling of Nigeria. And, I read something about a Senegalese who was asking, you Ghanaians and Nigerians, Charlie, the way you go at each other and the way you seem to have this bond. It's almost as though there were only two countries in Africa, Ghana and Nigeria. But hey, the love is deep and the beef is also deep. It's just the way it is.
Did you see the map that someone drew and just attached Ghana map to Nigerian map as if the countries were actually neighborly like that?
I've not seen that one yet, though. Okay. But we have a call on the line. Hello, good morning.
Good morning, Benjamin.
Haruna, I believe.
Yes.
Hi, Haruna.
Haruna Abdullah Ghani, yes, please. Calling from Tamale.
Okay, Haruna from Tamale. Share your thoughts with us.
Yes. Hey, your line, to get your line is not been easy. Every day I've been trying, but I'm not been getting you. Okay, good morning to my honorable MP, Lawyer Hassan Tampuli. And then I want you people to see, to pray for us so that the president will look into his position so that he can get the successful ministry. Hello?
You want the president to do what?
I said, I'm praying that the president will look into his position so that he will give him a ministry.
Right.
Yes. And then about the Grappa Hotel, what's the name? Hotel Dubai. The man really is a good man, and then what he brought to Grappa, we were all praying that all the northern brothers should come and do the same thing.
Right.
But what happened to him is so sad. So may his soul rest in peace.
Amen. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts with us.
Did he say he wants to pray for the president to do what?
I believe he was suggesting he was praying that the president would, if there were to be a reshuffle, he mentioned his member of parliament, Hassan Tampuli. I don't know whether he's asking for a different position for him. I think at a point he was even asking us to join him in prayer.
Yes.
Are you going to join the church?
I was taken aback.
The church service?
No, please.
You're not?
No, I'm sorry.
Okay, all right.
It's an easy no for me. I don't know you like that, and I don't know your MP, and you know.
Okay. So if you knew him like that and he knew his MP, maybe you would pray.
I pray for just two things in life, Benjamin.
Okay.
I'll tell you when the cameras are not on. But we have Junior on the line. Good morning, Junior.
Good morning.
What are your thoughts you want to share with us?
Okay. Thank you very much for bringing this issue on your show this morning. It's very alarming, the number of unemployment rates, especially among the youth, whilst we have some old people still occupying public services. These people can pave way for the young to also grow. It's very sad. It's very sad that we are in a country where we still have people more than 60 years holding public offices, taking fat salaries, whilst youth are still on the street working. A first-class graduate checking blood pressure for 3 days. before the person can make an end meet. Meanwhile, the person has spent 3-4 years in tertiary, paying for handouts, writing exams, paying school fees, and all those things. The person is still a burden to the nation. Are we getting things right in this country at all? Whilst we have more ministers who are just there doing nothing. Are these politicians taking the youth for fool, or they are just trying to make fans of us? We tell us that we should go to school, education is key to success. You go to the school, after that, you don't get anything from it. You just go and waste that money. And now they want to stop nurses from moving outside the country to go and work. It will never happen. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Junior. I felt the passion in your voice when you were speaking about, the number of young people. The statistics, Benjamin, is 13.4% overall unemployment. It means 2 out of 10 young people, or Ghana's labor force, between 15 and 35, are neither in employment, training, or any sort of industrial activity that propels them to success. And they say that the youth are the future leaders. So I actually, I felt the passion, because I have the same questions to ask. What are they doing with us, with the young people of the nation?
You'd ask whether they are actually not toying with us.
Yeah, it's sad. But then again, it's a clarion call, that you don't have to sit and wait around for the government to do anything for you. No, if they do it for you, it's a plus. But if they don't, find your own way of surviving. Stay afloat, don't sink. By all means, stay afloat, don't sink, because...
Which is why I also find it so disturbing when you have these very same youth. But it's also a spin-off of this situation. So some of them feel the only way I can make it is to attach myself to a political party or some political figure. AKA NDC, NPP. So you will see some of them defending the indefensible. Because they feel that is where their bread may be buttered. Honestly, if a lot of people were well educated, and I'm saying you look at the literacy rate in the country, it's not bad. But if we had a very well educated society, and all these people had ways of earning a living, you wouldn't find anybody following, playing the foot soldier role, wanting to be such an ardent party communicator and all of that, because you have something better to do. But the same youth whom you fight for will end up being the ones calling and telling you, they, this and that, because they are being paid by one side, or they are earning some chicken change from one of those ends.
It's the foundation. The education sector is, what is our education system, putting us to? What kind of training are they giving us? How are they educating us? The rote learning, the chew and paw, it's not going anywhere. So
I know of Ghanaians who have had stellar grades here. They go to other parts of the world and it's a shock. Not just a cultural shock, it's like, whoa, what just happened? No, your system didn't help you that much. You didn't get the sort of
you weren't
other
educated.
foundations.
You just read some things and passed some exams, but the quality of education that you must possess before you can compete with other people from other parts of the world, you lack that. It's a very fundamental of it. But we have to bring the show to an end. It's been a cocktail again today. I like using that
always.
word. Yeah.
As always. Well, that's how we cap off the show. My name is Benjamin Akakpo, and I've been doing this together with
Sweetie Abochi.
We'll be back on this channel tomorrow, but for now, Joy News Desk up next.